So good morning, everybody. We'll start with a pledge of allegiance, and then we'll talk about what we got on the agenda today. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hi, so good morning, everybody. Christian J. Hine, District Manager. We actually have three major or big things, big topics on the discussion or the board today for the work session. There will be a conversation with the Colorado Rural Water Association, providing what their analysis was for a rate increase for Pueblo West after our last one has ended in this year, talking about what the potential is for going forward. I do want to be clear, this is not a proposed rate increase or rate adjustment that the board is going to be evaluating and deciding today. This is very much an informational brief to give feedback on what we're looking at in the next several years and what it could look like as far as the additional changes, and this has the ability to provide feedback and be able to develop a actual proposed rate going forward and moving into the next few years. After that, we'll probably jump into what we're going to collectively call the mid-year report. That is a conversation that involves both giving updates and feedback or the overview of our strategic plan to date. And it's a 5-year strategic plan going to end of 2029. And then jumping into our capital improvement program and the projects that have been slated. We'll have a presentation on that as well. And then we'll go into the agenda and discuss what is coming up Monday. So before we start, are there any questions? Okay. I'll turn it over to Josiah and Jim to get started with the first part.
Good morning, President, members of the board. Jim Blazing, Director of Utilities. We have several services from Colorado Rural Water Association and through our membership. And they help us with certifications and training and a lot of things that help our employees train better. One of the services that they have offered is rate analysis, so we secured that service, and I'll turn it over to Josiah because he's been the one that's been working with us with all the numbers and everything else that we consider.
Awesome. I'm Josiah Thomas. I am the Project and Funding Specialist with Colorado Rural Water Association. I have a background in geophysics and oil and gas, which led me into water at this point. I do specialize in visualization and data manipulation, so that's what we're going to look at, is how I've used RevPlan to rationalize rate increases in a potential 4-tier structure for rates as well. So the model was built using several data sources. We have reserves and existing debt, which is obviously the bulk of where the revenue is being tabulated. We have customer classes, monthly and total usage. So that comes from your customer bills and is compiling where usage exists, what is happening with it, and that is all implemented into it. We have operation and maintenance budgets for fiscal year 2023 and 2024 using the actuals, and then using a 2025 to 2035 plan for capital improvement and operation and maintenance budgets. I also implemented the capital improvement schedule, which it sounds like you guys are updating today. So rest assured, all of this can be changed through time. And then the current rate schedule and proposed rate schedule is also implemented. So the guardrails that we implement and what kind of define where the model is going is debt service coverage ratio has to be over 1.2, which is essentially your debt service. I figure everyone's familiar with debt service at some capacity, but you're trying to make sure that when you're accumulating debt, your income is over 1.2% or 1.2 ratio of that, or 120%. And I know debt service is something that isn't necessarily as straightforward, but reserves, that needs to be over 9 months O&M. We'll see that visualized in the next slide. And then revenue must also be over operation and maintenance and debt service. And then finally, rate smoothing, which we'll see how that's implemented as well in the next slide. There are several assumptions that I made in this which aren't necessarily reflective of where it's going to be at the end, but all projects are currently considered to be covered by debt, all capital improvement projects. A fourth residential / duplex tier exists at a higher rate at $9.46 a kilogallon, and again, that isn't set in stone. And a second commercial / multiplex tier exists at $5.05 per kilogallon. Does anyone have any questions after that slide? Now, on to the next slide. We have 3 graphs here. The top 2 graphs are demonstrating, and it's kind of hard to see because we're on TVs, but you have drinking water requirements for revenue, and that comes from the several statistics that we generated from the previous slide. And what you're mostly looking at is you're looking at the dashed line versus the red line. The red line is without any increases to rates. It's only including a 4th tier. And the dashed line is what includes the new rate increases. So as you can see, the red line, even with the 4th tier, doesn't necessarily fulfill the requirements of being over operation and maintenance schedules. But with the rate increases, you can proactively, I guess, manage the projects and the funding in that manner. So when you look at drinking water versus wastewater, obviously you guys are well over the threshold, and that's why rate increases only increase moderately. The rate increases for wastewater were done in order to improve debt service coverage. But so yeah, the top 2 graphs show that rate increases help solidify the reserves. Actually, could you go to the next slide? I'm sorry, I realized you're on your phone. Reserves are shown in the top graph, where 270 days of O&M is the red line, and you're trying to get over that line using reserves. And reserves are generally built by having a surplus, obviously, over O&M and debt service. So when you have that surplus, you're increasing reserves, you're improving functionality of your system, and you're generally improving the financial capacity of your system. The bottom graph, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, stay on that.
The bottom graph is what shows where the normal, or I guess the average water user is going to be paying. I think currently that model specifically is not looking at anything over 5,000 gallons in usage. So this is a standard bill over the next 20 years for anyone who's using under 5,000 gallons, or 5,000 or less. I will say that in comparison to other systems, that it is not as high, which that is a great sign. But I think water and sewer rates are generally increasing across the board for every system during 2025 and onward. Right now is what I'm hearing and seeing. So, next slide.
So I'm sorry,
Go
can we
ahead.
stay on that for a minute? So the unrestricted fund balance, are we assuming that we're spending all $28 million that's assigned to capital projects this year?
28 million. That's, yeah. I think I believe that every capital expenditure for this year was not implemented into the reserve model.
So
I'm
it's
not
not
sure what.
That's not affecting your model average and your incline? Is that?
You're saying the 28 million that was allocated this year?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this might be a question for Jeffrey.
It's only going forward 2026 and on.
Yeah, 2026 onward.
So not taking into account the large capital expenditures we have planned for this year. Do you want to jump in?
Yeah, your question is this model taking into account everything budget for this year being expended in that capital?
Correct.
I do not know if it's been accounted for.
Well,
Yeah.
2025 being expended, yes.
That is, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so post the expenditures, I believe.
Because I know it's not routine to have $28 million go down to capital expenditures a year for water. It's just something we're doing to make sure that we catch up on projects, right?
Mhm.
So,
Yes, so for instance, I think one of them might be the $8.5 million for one of the grants that we're expecting or hoping for. Like, obviously that one won't go through, and if there's any projects that they would roll over into the future year.
Okay. I just want to make sure nothing's skewed. based
Yeah,
on-
I did have, I wanted to implement a Gantt chart, if you guys are familiar. It's essentially a calendar chart that shows all the projects, and I should have put that in. It's my mistake for not including it, because I did want you guys to see all the capital improvements and what were actually included in the project, so.
Okay.
I think that is a great question. It does seem that since the capital expenditures are below 10 million, that does seem to be the case, and I think that's validated to Christian, so.
Okay.
Thank you for the question.
And the capital, the capital expenditures are coming out of a fund balance, correct? We don't have bonds against that.
Right.
No, no, I don't believe.
Do we have any bonds outstanding right now?
Wastewater, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
350 a year.
wastewater, there is existing debt. I remember that
Yeah,
specifically.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like 350 a year or something like that, budgeted.
Does that end this year, or is it, you know?
No, I asked Karen, I believe it was like 2029,
Yeah, it's
4 years.
the model reflects when that debt service does end. Because I remember I included the wastewater bonds in debt service in the model, which I really do think that if I do present in front of the public, I will 100% improve and implement the capital improvement Gantt chart. I think that that's a really good visual that will help improve the narrative and make sure people know where the money's being allocated. But the capital improvement plan is directly from the system, and it should be comprehensive. And I believe that there are several reserves, actually. There were projects that are drawing from reserves, now that I think about it. But I think we're ready for the next slide. So obviously, we all are familiar why rates need to change, not necessarily now, but in general now. We need to be funding future projects consistently using updated rate requirements and updated financial requirements every year, in my opinion. But to keep service reliable, fund projects, and price outdoor peaks fairly while protecting basic indoor use, that's why rates need to change. And then it's not necessarily tonight's decision, I'm realizing. It should be today's decision, and it's not even a decision for today, but adopting a fourth tier rate structure that helps cover costs, meet financing requirements, and send a clear conservation signal in the summer. That's kind of the main point of adding a fourth tier, is for conservation and generating funds, and we'll get into that in the next slide. But bottom line, stable water service needs stable funding. The plan protects essential use and prices discretionary peaks. So this is, I know a lot of numbers up at the top there, but I built 4 models. The original model undershot the revenue by about $2.4 million, which just showed us this is where we can improve the model. This is what we can do to show accurate revenue. So the way that we improve that is by including usage into the model. It's a percentage year over year, so I calculated which customer class is using how much water throughout the year, and that improved the overall model and gave us a much more accurate idea of how much revenue is being generated. So then that obviously didn't include the fourth tier, but we added the fourth tier, and that increased revenue by approximately $1.1 million. That also does include usage rates that I implemented into the model as well. So bottom line, a fourth tier without the rate adjustments will increase your revenue by about $1.1 million. And that obviously, we can refine that number by either lowering or increasing the threshold that the rate that the tier exists on, or adjusting the rate that that customer class is paying. So like I said, none of this is set in stone. It really just goes to show that the fourth tier increases revenue significantly and also disincentivizes outdoor water usage during the summer, while also building reserves and building funding capacity throughout. So when you add the rate adjustments, which are listed at the bottom there in that table, we have a 20% base charge, and this is all, again, not set in stone. We can change any of this because the model is very malleable. But base charges increase 20%, use charges increase 30%, which increases the total revenue by approximately $3.1 million. So those are kind of the two main figures. Is a fourth tier adds 1.1 million, and a fourth tier with rate adjustments can add upwards of 3 to, I guess the main thing that you guys should recognize is that the model will be able to be manipulated to where we can, but these are the rates that we determined that would be best to handle the current debt service and the capital improvement plan and operation and maintenance schedules. The model shows that rate increases maintain financial capacity while enabling future process refinement and growth. That's bottom line as well. I think that, does anyone have any questions on this page specifically?
I do. So the original model, which is what we're looking at, proposed increase to 10 million.
Mhm.
It looks like you had mentioned that the tier 4 adds 1 million, a little over 1 million. Looks to me like it's more than 4 million.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. The original model wasn't an accurate portrayal of current revenue standards. I think, if I remember right, water revenue for 2024 was roughly 9.7 million, and this is all speculated to be 10.7 million for 2025 using usage rates as well. And it's all, I mean, it is speculative based on potential usage for 2025. We can't guarantee what 2025 usage numbers are actually going to be, but we'll get into where the usage lies in the next slide, but I figured that didn't answer your question, so.
So we really don't have any debt service, so the additional monies would be set aside into a fund that could be used to pay for future projects.
Mhm.
And I think on your last slide, it showed the upward trend. I guess what I'm getting at is, are we gonna be looking at a 20% rate increase every year?
No.
How do
I mean,
we ever
essentially-
get to a point where we're not increasing fees this much? Because
I think that the goal is to make sure that you don't have to do this ever again. Right? So you increase it once to make sure that you're above the threshold, and then from there you increase it much more modestly because you have an idea of, like, I guess the crux of it is you guys were not having the revenue to maintain operation and maintenance schedules. And debt service was also, I guess proposed debt service was not able to be covered. So the rate increases there, make sure that you guys are building reserves, your debt service is covered, and O&M is also covered. And those are the rates that ensure that happening based on what the model has been fed.
So real quick context for new board members. When we look at the budget, when we look at the previous rate analysis that was done, it assumed that there was still water within the district and that people who were paying for service connection into that water were doing so, and that attributed towards the total revenue that the operation of the utilities department could utilize to be able to spend its expenses or cover its expenses. As we run out of water, so essentially if there was 500 acre feet of water, and that's what's left, and that's where the taps are coming from, and people are buying into it, that's going to their gross revenue against their expenses for just operating costs. There has been that concern that people have been saying that the existing ratepayers have been subsidizing growth, and this is showing that it's quite the opposite. The people who were buying into the connection of the existing water were helping make it so that their existing water rates did not have to be as high. Now that we're running lower on those taps and those water resource, those connection fees, those plan investment fees are going to be reduced, and they're going to go towards the actual expansion and growth. That means this revenue has to catch up and be able to address the actual operating needs of the utility department, in this case, the water service. So just to answer your quick question off that, no, it's not, or actually two questions. It's not 20% year after year. It's an initial spike, what's being proposed there, but then it's tapering off into something that is 10% in the future couple years, and 3% in this model, which, as Josiah said, could be malleable. You can change some of those things, but that's what it's proposing right now. And then the 4 models up top, looking at the second column, the original model with more updated revenue, that's the number that's projected for actual user fees, and that's the base charge and the usage charge. The 4-tier model is just adding a 4th tier, not adjusting the rates at all. 4-tier model with rate adjustments is where that additional adjustment comes from, what we're seeing at the bottom. Is that fair?
Yeah, that was all really well put. You were talking. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought entirely.
No, all good.
You made a really good point on. I'm just blanking. My brain's not working.
It's okay,
Existing ratepayers paying.
Yeah, you can tell me I made a good point anytime.
Yeah, you were talking about tap fees and implementing new taps. I think that it is well known that you guys aren't necessarily adding a large amount of taps anymore. I think you guys are near capacity, if I remember right.
With existing water resources.
With existing water resources. So yeah, I guess that is an excellent way to say that the reason why your guys' model wasn't necessarily covering debt service and O&M is because taps have slowed down. The revenue that was coming from tap fees has more or less diminished, and because of that, rate increases must be established.
And then to your point about additional revenue going into the fund balance, that's part of the intent, but especially if we come to that point where the fund balance gets drained, if the 28 million is spent, it's gonna take a while to catch back up to large projects. So if projects need to be done, which there are projections for capital projects going for the next 10 years for the water department, it's more likely they'll have to take out debt and pay that debt off to be able to complete those projects in that timeline. So that's where the debt service is trying to cover in that projection.
I understand, but what happens when you get your population down to using 15,000 gallons of water a month? What does that do to our projection?
Yeah, and that is a study that I don't have the data on this presentation, but I've looked into it. When you decrease usage, obviously you're going to decrease revenue, but conservation is a good thing. When you have decreased usage, you have more water resources available to use on other things necessarily. And I think that obviously, we will go into where revenue lays in the next graph. If you wouldn't mind just showing us the next one, because this does show where usage exists. But as you can see, we have a lot of usage. The orange is over 30,000. The blue is under 30,000 in usage. But if you were to decrease that over 30,000, you would probably diminish, diminish your overall, after rate increases and a fourth tier implementation. It wouldn't quite hit that 4.78 million, but I think that it would probably stay above that threshold and stay above the operation and maintenance threshold. And then that also goes into the fact that this is a study that needs to be recurring necessarily, and we built the model to be robust into the future as well. So the seasonality, I think we will probably see a decrease from that 4.78 million, and we could probably correspond a different rate increase to make sure that we are operating above that threshold for debt service and O&M. But again, this all just kind of goes back into the fact that the model is malleable, and if any rate adjustments need to be made, they can be. But this is what we were advising based on the numbers that we saw.
And that's 2023 data, is that what that says?
This is 24 into now, I believe, if I remember right.
Is that 25? Okay,
Yeah, it says 5.
okay. Sorry.
Yeah, 24 into 25. Yeah, April of 24 into March of 25, yes. I think. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what it says.
Yeah.
You have to trust the data. But yeah, it's April 24 to March of 25.
So since you guys looked at the actual data on usage, have you broken out what the average usage rate is per household?
Average rate usage per household,
Yeah.
that's an easy value I can easily determine. It
I
wouldn't.
know that's something we've been looking at anyway.
Yeah, I can pull that. I can pretty easily determine that. I don't have it off on the presentation or off the top of my head, but I have the data. So, and I do have. We'll look at, if you wouldn't mind showing us the next slide too. I'm not necessarily reading it anymore, but that's those same graphs broken even further into usage. So it gives you a proportion and a total number for each one. This is one of the main graphs to show that usage is significantly above 30,000, especially for residential. And other rate tiers can also probably be established for more equivalent or equitable or equivalent pricing ratios. But I know it's a graph to look at and pay attention to. But I think that it really does show that a fourth tier will increase revenue significantly. And even if it doesn't, it'll disincentivize outdoor usage and decrease outdoor usage, which is, I would consider to be a positive thing for water resources. Conservation is always a priority, and yeah, that's just what this graph is showing, is that you can increase rates for a third tier or fourth tier It'll increase revenue and hopefully disincentivize outdoor water use, because over that 30,000 threshold is where most of the outdoor water usage is existing.
So can you give, for myself as well as the community, can you give us an example of what 30,000 gallons of water usage looks like?
Yeah, I mean, I think an average household, generally indoor water usage, we assume 5 to 10,000.
Right.
For,
That seems like
for a single family.
30,000 seems like a lot.
Yeah, 30,000 is a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and
what does that look
That's why
like?
you see it on the residential, and it's surprising because you wouldn't expect for that many people to be.
Is that like
using
flushing the
it.
toilet nonstop for
Well,
24
yeah.
hours?
Well,
What does that look like?
Irrigation.
Yeah, it
Right.
is. It includes irrigation, and that is the main factor
That's
of
the
what
spike.
contributes over 30,000. So
I
if you have
get
5
that.
to 10,000 of indoor water usage, and you don't really fluctuate much on that unless you're taking really long showers or, like I said, like you said, flushing the toilet 24 hours a day.
Right.
A
A water leak.
Yeah, and this is also, it does go to show that improving monitoring of water rates using the meter is also a valuable thing, because you know where water usage is and you can better classify where water is being used. But this kind of just goes into where it is being used above that threshold. So above 10,000, I would assume that on a residential basis, it's for irrigation.
So this is just help from Google and AI. 30,000 gallons of water in a month is a lot. Equivalent to the volume of 120 by 40 backyard swimming pool, or about 1,000 gallons per day. This amount could be from a large family of 5 or 6 using around 160 to 200 gallons each day, or a large irrigation system.
So a family of, you said 4 or
5 to
5,
6.
or 5 to 6 using
Yeah.
1,000 gallons a day?
Not 1,000,
Or-
160 to 200.
Yeah, 2 per day.
So that's
200 gallons of water a day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Per capita.
Mhm.
That's wild.
Yeah, I mean, and it does kind of bring it to the forefront of your mind. It's like we use water frivolously a lot of the time, and especially when it comes to outdoor water usage. It's not a necessity. Water we need to survive.
That's
you
about
know?
a third of our residents, would
Yeah.
you say?
I'm not sure, like, volumetrically, it's a third of the total volume of water usage, but in terms of the total number of customers, I would
Yeah,
say it's
yeah.
probably
No, I get it, I get it,
close
yeah.
to a tenth of the customers.
Okay.
Can you explain what the fourth tier is again?
Yeah, so
And
the
how
fourth
that,
tier-
and then what that bottom point means? So how it ensures rates target excessive outdoor usage?
Yeah, so if you're targeting a fourth tier, it's generally to get.
What is the fourth tier first?
The
though?
fourth tier, so you have block rates, right? You have the initial block, which is 0 to 5,000, I believe, right? 0 to 5,000, which I think the rate is like $4 or something like that. And then from 5 to 10,000 is the second tier. 10 to 20,000 is the third tier. And then 20, I guess it would be 10 to 30 is the third tier, and then 30 and above is the fourth tier. Up
Right.
until now, you guys haven't had a fourth tier.
We have 3
Yeah.
tiers.
Right now, it's 1 to
Gotcha.
5,000, 5 to 10,000, and then anything above 10,000.
So what you're talking about proposing here is basically this fourth tier comes into play for the users that are in the green,
Mhm.
as an
Yep.
example,
Yeah,
to,
exactly.
their rates increase once they're at that threshold.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep, yeah, when you're above that threshold, I believe it's across the board, you pay that for every gallon of water, or every kilogallon.
Every 1,000.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I just have a couple other questions, and I don't know if you're going to go through this in the rest of your presentation, but,
I think this is on this side.
okay. Just, I'm wondering about the certain assumptions that have been made during this process. Like, what is, where are the water resources and what is the cost for that? Are we going off of what we've done traditionally? Are we looking at, the potential of things that we've been discussing in terms of where water is coming from and how much that could potentially cost? Are we breaking down the water usage rates per household to identify what that looks like for each individual household? And the water needs for the district when you look at our OEM or what?
O&M, operation maintenance.
To make sure that we have enough water and enough in storage and so forth.
I mean, I can dive into that a little bit.
And then
Jim, is it okay if I talk about the green space map? Yeah, so I have been analyzing regionally the water usage using GIS and mapping and satellite imagery, which I think, Christian, you've seen it as well, right? I am endeavoring to understand how much water is being used outdoor on a parcel by parcel basis. And I've been doing that kind of as a pilot study with you guys, with your guys' system as a map. But I mean, I wish I could pull it up right now for you guys to see, but I have canopy mapped and classified between small, medium, and large trees. I have ground cover mapped, and I have it classified between unhealthy, I guess, regular or just moderately healthy, and then healthy that ground cover. And that should be able to, given certain characteristics and statistical processing, determine how much each parcel is using outdoor. And then we can compare that to the actual water usage and determine how much is being used indoor versus outdoor on a per parcel basis.
Okay.
And I wish I
Good
could show
data.
you a map right now because it's beautiful. But
Yeah, it's a lot of layers. That's good.
You guys would probably not be. I know you guys saw it last week, and they couldn't stop looking at it. So, because
So-
there's a lot of information to be gained from your guys' map, and especially
Right.
when you're mapping vegetation, it's very cool and it's fascinating to look at.
So-
But of course, that leads to your question of if we're looking at water usage as a whole, and we are.
Yeah, because we need to identify the revenue standards based on those couple of assumptions.
Yeah.
And then, so I was going through revenues and expenses for water and wastewater. Looks like metered sales were budgeted for 9 million. This is just water. The PIF is 2.8 million. The resource fee is about 500K. Tap fee 260K. I know we're worried about tap fees lessening throughout the year because we're serving, or we have fewer and fewer new builds. But overall expenses for water enterprise, if you take out capital expenditures, is about 10 million. So just with metered sales as budgeted and the PIF and a water resource fee, which I believe is all on our water bill, correct? So that's over the 10 million in expenses to be able to put money aside for reserves. And then the wastewater enterprise, we have the sewer usage at 4.6 revenue. This is revenue. PIF at 275K, tap fee at 30K, and expenses are about 3.5 million. And again, that's without any capital improvements or expenditures
Where are you reading those numbers?
from our financial statements that are in the board portal.
Is that based on to date, or is that
That's
budget?
as of 7/31
Okay.
and what's budgeted.
Because
And in the comparison of where we're at currently at this year compared to budget.
okay, because I think the numbers as far as the budget year are different from what you read off. I might have to look at the financial statements you're seeing. So looking at a budget, the total expenses for
Go back and slides.
Go back.
Yeah, to the
Water.
revenue graphs.
personnel is 4.7 million, operating is 9.4, total of about 14.1. That's not capital equipment and projects.
In the water enterprise for,
Are you gonna do another presentation?
I mean, I'm available.
Okay.
I don't think it's on the books yet to do a public presentation, but I'm available.
So what will probably happen here is obviously digest a lot of the information. What we're going to ask the board for is guidance on how they'd like to see this proceed with either the exact presentation we're getting, there's no changes looking for it, this is what we'll develop into proposed rate, and then we'll follow a public hearing procedure for that. If there is guidance to say we would like you to look at X or Y or adjust these things, then we'll take that feedback and prepare it for that same presentation. And it doesn't have to happen today as far as guidance that where that digestion can take place.
I would like to have some information as to how it will impact fees if conservation takes place because of because of the high fees. What's that actually gonna do to us? And is that going to
You're talking about
itself?
the economic impact?
Yeah, is that itself gonna trigger another type of fee increase because we're not selling water?
Yeah, I mean, I think the implementation of the fourth tier kind of almost makes it foolproof in terms of how much funding you need, because you can always lower that threshold and people will be paying pretty much the same amount. It's all malleable, and whatever conservation occurs, we can correspondingly increase rates or change the threshold of each tier, if that makes sense.
All right, I'd like to see some kind of model as to what the impact would be.
Okay.
Because if you take that 227 million gallons and you cut it down to
Yeah.
2 million,
Yeah, I
that's a
can-
lot of
I can
revenue that you're not
easily model
getting.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
but keep in mind, is we, as consumers use less, it allows us to sell to more consumers.
Yeah.
So as we build out,
Mm.
we're limited by taps. So if these people cut water usage, that frees up taps for more lots to sell. So it's speculative in nature, I agree with you, but it's kind of looking at a crystal ball.
That's well put.
So,
What-
correction on my statement, just to be clear, I missed the source of supply.
Yeah, that's a big
budget
one.
code, and that's 4 million, so it brings it to a total of 14 million, not 10, in expenses.
Real quick, I think to that point and to, I think, I can't remember who brought it up earlier, and for everybody's awareness, there are generally two charges on an existing ratepayers bill, the base rate and what's called the usage rate for charges. And in theory, the reason you want base rate and you want usage is ideally you want the base rate to cover all costs expended just to keep the system operational. Has nothing to do with actually delivering the water, just to make sure the system's in place to do so. And then the usage would cover how much it costs to get that water from point A to point B and charging them for how much they're using as well. It isn't always a perfect system, but I know we've had conversations about adjusting those in the past. I know a lot of people get upset when it comes to talking about a base rate, but it also helps create a little bit more predictability. If we see that huge drop of somebody using 30,000 gallons a month and they suddenly go down to 15,000, it does create an impact, but since it's only affecting the usage rate, it can be adjusted over time and still capture a little bit easier.
Yeah, base rates are essentially almost a guarantee source of income, and then usage is obviously going to be the one that changes. But we can model that. The usage is easy to manipulate. You just change percentages.
Right.
So like rather than it being, let's say like currently for residential, it's 30% of all usage over 30,000. If that decreases to 25%, we can distribute that amongst the other tiers. So rather than it being 30% and then let's say 20 and then 5 and then 2 or something, it's going to be 25, 18, 25 and then 7 or something. You can distribute it, and it's again malleable. So if we want to forecast and if we want to model different, I guess, usage scenarios, like let's say overall usage decreases as well, we can model that. It's all there. And I would probably need specific ideas on where to take it.
No,
To your point, Ryan, you would free up more taps, but at a lower rate.
The lower rate, but your usage number will go. My standard joke, Bill, is we sell a commodity, we don't want people to use it.
That's funny.
And as we talk in this conversation, other things that have been speculated but maybe not analyzed, as far as an example be a previous board member brought up a lot, availability of service charges. That's a charge that you can give to, it's not developed property, but it's property within a certain distance, I think it's 50 feet of a water line. It can potentially go into there. And so you can charge that property a certain availability of service, so that way you're recouping, but it's only used in specific situations, like if you take debt. I think that's the only time you can actually do it. So when we talk about a debt service plan where we're taking out that, it could be something that could be proposed, and that additional revenue can help cover some of those costs.
Colorado City does that.
Do they?
Yeah.
I think I heard about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've worked with Colorado City. We helped, my dad actually, Scott Thomas, he worked with them on that. He was spearheading it, but yeah, they wound up increasing their rates significantly, and we built a brochure for them as well. I don't know if that is on the table, but I built a brochure recently for Rye for rate increases. So once you guys do determine that, just rest assured I can deal with building a brochure and some like a website as well, so people can understand it.
So this map that you have, it sounds like it's interactive. It's on GIS.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
then you
it's
have layers or
interactive to
something?
a certain point.
Okay.
I have all the data. It's not on a web platform yet, but I can easily make it into a web platform. It's robust. It has a lot of information on there, but the question is, what do you do with the data and how do you make actionable insights from it? And that's where it comes down to the system, in my opinion. Because the data's all there, it's just what do we do with it at the end of the day? And I know places like Castle Pines have implemented water budgets, which is a potential for the future as well. Water budgets are essentially, you have a predetermined water budget that if you go above, you pay a premium for that water above that water budget. But it's on a per parcel basis. So Castle Pines is doing that, Parker is doing it, Castle Rock's doing it now. It's really just that southern area that I've noticed, and I think it's because I talked to them about it, so.
Do you think you could bring that map to another presentation?
Yeah, I would love to. It's just,
And then-
it is a chock full of information map. Probably the most informative map that you can find for your guys' system outside of, no, and it includes every piece of infrastructure, so, yeah. I think my
then,
objective, and I haven't talked to the engineer group about it in a while, but I would like to work with the engineer group on it, see what they think and what we can do with it. But I think if we have another presentation, or when we have another presentation, I can easily show it. I have
Okay.
maps available.
And then just a breakdown of, you mentioned like healthy vegetation, unhealthy vegetation.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means, so I'm
Yeah.
sure there's other people that don't know what it means, so just a breakdown of what that
Mhm.
means.
Yeah,
in your
it
map.
goes into satellite imagery, and it does go into some relatively complex pieces of information, but what matters is vegetation reflects near infrared and red light, and it absorbs green light, so you're looking for that red, and that's how you can tell the health of the vegetation, is the difference between the near infrared and the red bands of data. So to put that to a person who doesn't know satellite imagery at all would be tough, but I've done it before, and I have a presentation on that actually specifically. So if we are ever going to implement that, I think it would be important to dive into those details. But overall, it's kind of, you get lost in the weeds when you get into the actual data and how it is represented, what we did with it.
Mhm.
But I have all of it documented, so
Okay.
it's just a matter of getting your hands on it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think if other people in the district thought the map was quite interesting, I think it would be good to,
Yeah. I
for
mean, Jim,
everybody,
do you have
for
any
everybody
thoughts
to,
on the map?
for people to
No,
see
I
it.
think it's very comprehensive,
Mhm.
you bet. Serves as a heck of a resource.
Yeah, I mean, having a map of all your vegetation too
So
it's a superpower.
What it's actually showing is who's using a lot of water.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
outside
have
of
a
the
really
water
green
bills.
lawn.
Mhm.
They're not names, they're parcels.
Yeah.
Yeah, we aren't going to publicize.
How's the
them
golf
names.
course show up?
I have that. That is actually the case study that I verified the model on. So, yeah, I haven't run the standardized vegetation model for everything. I only did it for the area around the golf course, or the golf course and the neighborhood inside the golf course. So that's where all the vegetation is mapped. And actually, it's specifically classified, not mapped, because the rest of it is mapped. It's only classified for the golf course in that neighborhood. I mean, honestly, Jeffrey, do you have that, the most recent map? Or
I could pull it.
at least one of the most recent maps? Because I think you guys would find insight from it.
Give me a couple minutes and I'll try and send it to Bree and she can pull it up.
Perfect. But yeah, it's really cool. And I think having a model of every tree, of every piece of ground cover is a superpower for your system. It's just, what do you do with it? Similar to this, what do you do with this financial model? When you have a model, what are the insights? What do you do with it? And I think that this model and the spatial model do show that rate increases are almost a necessity, especially in terms of conservation and in terms of sustainability. Because the main goal is sustainability, and to create a system that isn't going to falter and will always provide a stable service to your constituents. So
How long have we had that 3-tier
that's a good question.
system of billing?
Probably as long as you guys.
Yeah.
What?
It's a very long time.
20 or
Before
10 to 12.
2020, it sounds like. 20.
Yeah.
Yeah,
at least 10 years?
I mean, I could probably dive into some old data and try to determine it, but I think what matters is it's been here for
Yeah.
most of the recent past. So
Cool.
So basically, if we look at spending all the capital expenses, we're basically draining most of what we have reserved. Is that correct? From what I remember.
Yeah, puts us at 4.6 million.
So, and then we're currently budgeted to earn interest on that of about $500,000. If we do the math based on regular sales, PIF, resource fees, tap fee, versus the expenses, including that $4 million in the source of supply, we're looking at a deficit of $1 million if you take out that interest earning, because we will no longer have the money in an account to earn interest. Does that make sense? Does that sound
I
right?
think so. Yeah, so going quick numbers, just in water, talking about that for now.
Yeah, just water, yeah.
The user fees are about 9.2 million budgeted for 2025, 500,000 for investment. I'm gonna leave out the tap, PIF, and water resource fee for a moment. The miscellaneous revenue is only 1,000, and then service charge and fees brings us to a little over that. I think it's that 10 million figure. The
Yeah.
reason taking out that tap, PIF, and tap, PIF, and water resources, that will, after taps are done, be dedicated for growth, essentially being those things that people have to pay in order to buy into a system because we're limited on water resources. So that's where that 10 million revenue is coming from.
So, for instance, if we were to broker a deal and increase the cost of a lease of water, what have you, to have enough water for the remainder of our build out, those new builds will be paying for that through a heightened PIF and
Essentially, yes. They will
water
be,
resource fee.
so if there was a, annual lease of $2 million and there's that being paid, that will go towards making sure that people connecting to the system are helping pay that off, so it's not just on the existing ratepayers.
Gotcha.
In addition to any evaluation of the expansion of plants or anything that would have to happen to be able to serve those new customers.
Okay. And then, but in the meantime, we're looking at trying to find $1 million,
That is just to cover.
just
I
to cover
believe-
costs.
I think it's more than $1 million. Because assuming you lose tap, PIF, and water resource, which is about that,
Yeah. The meter
3.5.
sales are down for the year too, so.
they are. I think they're close to the 8 millions are projected. So it's about $9 to $10 million for the expenses right now, which are about that 14 million. That's where the rate adjustments and the fourth tier cover that gap and start being able to do the debt service as well.
Okay.
That's a perfect picture of what happens. Usage goes down.
Yeah. And the hope is that a base rate helps keep you stable, so that way you can adjust rates easier going forward, but it would come with rate adjustments. Essentially, if you think of it, if there's so many customers in the district, but we have a revenue target just to maintain operational expenses, then you have an average bill that you want everybody, not you, but monthly bill, that you want everybody to be able to pay. And how people break it out is the more you use, the more you pay, the less you use, the less you pay. But as this goes down, this also has to go up just to balance it.
Ultimately, I'm just trying to figure out how we're gonna be able to have enough water for the entire district and make the deals that we need to make.
Yeah, I haven't seen any figures specifically on what your total water budget is, but I have a good basis for where all the water usage is occurring right now. I have customer bills and I do have the vegetation map. And this is probably the iteration from 6 months ago, but it shows where vegetation lies and it shows where buildings lie. So you're able to, essentially using the NDVI profile,
What is
normalized
it?
difference vegetation index.
What is NDVI again?
Normalized difference vegetation index. It was the ratio between red and near infrared satellite imagery. So you're able, it's a vegetation index, it shows where the vegetation is, and I know the legend's not on there, but I have derived a LiDAR model of your system as well, which shows how tall things are, and I derived it without topography or without the base. So you're only looking at what's above the ground. I think you guys will get a lot more out of the other map, honestly. This one just shows the basis of what we're looking at. And we have a buffer, we have the original boundaries, and we have all the vegetation. But I also have all the vegetation classified into trees and ground cover and buildings. And I have it on my phone if you guys want to look at it after as well.
Yeah, we'll see it at the next.
Or at the next time too. But I think that is what the model will look like roughly. That's just the bounds. But there's a lot more information, especially when you start to discretize and classify certain elements. And discretize meaning put things into parcels, and classify meaning generating features. But that has been a big deliverable of mine recently, is getting this map completed and getting it to a presentable format where you can start to do things with the engineering group. So I think that the next step for the map would probably be to share it with the engineering group and see what we can do with that.
So
What do those numbers mean in the?
So that's the distribution. The numbers on the bottom specifically are just the intensity of the signal. So most of the signal exists, and it actually doesn't really show anything with those numbers. I would have to classify it further.
Okay.
But it just shows that most of the data exists at the same level, which is non-vegetated. And I think that graph really did show me where to cut the data to be able to only look at the vegetation, if I remember right. So, yeah, you guys will like the next map. If you guys like this one, the next map is really, really cool. I'm very happy about it in general. I like the map a lot. And this is super fun. You guys have a really cool system to analyze.
That's the first time someone said that about us. So
I love it.
Usually it's the other thing.
So board, as far as this presentation goes, again, it was very informational, Josiah. Really appreciate all the work. Honestly, we had talked previously about doing an external study, and I don't know how much last one cost when we did it, but being able to,
We budgeted 60.
so being able to work with Colorado Rural and Josiah and his dad, super helpful, and it allowed us to be able to identify a lot of these things. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, anytime.
Yeah, thank
and
you.
if anything too, it can serve as a basis for another rate study as well. We do it for free, so it's nice.
Well, we appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Thanks, Josiah.
Great data to have, yeah.
We like that.
Yeah.
You're like free, right?
So board, at this time, we'll probably be able to work with potentially a follow-up presentation, maybe even before we get into the public hearing and conversations. But is there anything that you would like either staff or Josiah and us to be able to take away, to be able to follow up with? Or is there time to digest and we'll follow back up and seek some of that input before giving direction?
I think for community knowledge, we just need to focus on what Tier 4 really means. I think that was a great point to bring up, so that, people don't just look at it as another rate increase for everybody. It's to recover those costs that, from people that are using an enormous amount of water. Also, some sort of context about how much water that is, I think, blast that out there. And make people aware that, if you want to have a lake full of water on your house, you're gonna have to pay for it.
So does this map account for rainwater, runoff, all that stuff that could
Yeah, you'll
accumulate on
see,
somebody's?
you can see specifically in like the basins, the water basins, that there is more vegetation. So it doesn't
Well,
necessarily count just for that, but we can integrate it. Like I think the data that I'm utilizing is from 2023, and I remember that being a dry summer in Pueblo, if I remember right. Or no, that was a wet summer, 2023. If I remember right. A wet summer, so that's going to be greener than the normal, I guess, year. But kind of the main objective is to do this every 2 years, do this mapping study every 2 years, and get a pipeline so that once the data is available, we stick into the model and it just outputs this map. But it's hard to say where weather patterns exist without time studies, without a temporal element, without a time element. So, and right now we only have one data set. So we can't say what's exactly rainwater versus what's not, but I think if we continue to do this through the years, we should be able to derive that eventually. It's just a matter of, we can't say it definitively, unfortunately.
Right, and then I also go into, I'm sure there's gonna be people out there gonna be talking about privacy matters. You're literally looking at their property to see how much water consumption they're using possibly for their situation. I mean, I'm just going into some of those people that are out there that are gonna complain about privacy issues
Yeah,
or
and
such.
I appreciate that. I
And
have
then
an
the
ethics
other,
statement.
how far does this go as far as, how the government watches you and so on and so forth? And I'm to the point where it's like, if a person can afford it and they want to use the water, let them use the water. They'll pay for it in the end regardless.
Yeah. I think if you're generating water budgets from satellite imagery alone, that is an invasion of privacy. I think satellite imagery, unfortunately, is publicly available more or less. So if you don't want your property to be analyzed, you're gonna have to somehow figure out a way to block the signal from satellites.
No, I mean, it's overall general purpose, I get that, but
Yeah.
some people can, I'm just saying,
And-
you got
and
those
I-
people out there that do that stuff.
Yeah, I wrote
Be
an
careful
ethics
with it.
statement. I have an ethics statement generated specifically for this project, and it's stayed the same
Right,
throughout the entire
right.
thing.
Not just saying be careful.
I know, I appreciate it, yeah.
Well, one thing I would like also to include is, we are increasing rates to maintain a system and do capital projects. If for the public's benefit, we can get a little more detail of what we have anticipated coming down the pike, what they're actually paying for,
Yeah,
future projects, just so that they have an idea of justification for this, not just, oh, here we go again, we're raising rates because
Yeah.
you can.
yeah. I think that goes back to the Gantt chart.
Yes. Appreciate, I think even if we do it in the next presentation, having that or our own, between a master plan or showing the capital projects as they're listed. I did see one of the things that was sent, includes that, debt service coverage, which also talks about each of the projects, what year they're anticipated to take place, how much, whether they're based on reserves or future loans. So that's something we can include as well.
Good.
Christian, are you looking at the output from the revenue plan?
I think so. Rev plan schedule is 2025?
Yep.
Yep.
Yep, that is the most comprehensive data set for the current. If you want to dive into the specifics of where all the money is being allocated, what year, when it is, what fund, what account, it is in that spreadsheet. And that's the best way, outside of the visuals, to understand where the data is going.
Can you send that
And
to me?
yeah, we can share that.
I think it's in a complete enough state.
Thank you.
Anything else before letting them adjourn?
Just quick
Thank you so
curiosity, what about a fifth tier?
We could. I
I'm just
think-
curious.
In tiers, it doesn't necessarily have to stop at any point. It's whatever you guys need to maintain your system.
Okay.
It can all be modeled. I think the rev plan can implement, I can imagine that it would be able to implement any number of tiers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it doesn't have to stop at 4. I
Okay.
just think over 4, it does get a little excessive.
Okay.
Yeah, and it gets confusing.
So I think you got perfect timing because Scott just jumped on
Really?
as we're finishing up. Hi, Scott. Hello, everyone. Hello. We are actually just wrapping up. Josiah did an amazing job being able to provide the presentation and discussion. We actually bumped him ahead so that way he would not spend his entire morning talking about rates and listening to everything. But we definitely appreciate his time, appreciate you jumping on. Any other things before letting them adjourn?
Thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
Really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Josiah.
One, we could take
By the
a
way-
2 or 3 minute break before we jump into the media
Josiah
report.
did drive down from Denver this morning, so we appreciate that.
I did last night, and my hotel was horrible.
Oh, no. Where'd you stay?
Someone above me all night just walking, it was horrible. Yeah, just stomping, walking, until 3 a.m. Unbelievable.
during the winter, I only use 3.
All right, so next up, we've got capital improvement program. So this is going through everything in 2025 and 2026?
Just 2026.
Okay.
We don't have that on our,
Oh, this is a separate, this is not part of the Monday meeting. This
All
is
right.
part of the media report.
Good morning, President Vickers, members of the board. Sean Winters, Director of Operational Support. So this morning, here to present to you a draft of the 2026 Capital Improvement Program. Just for your awareness, this has changed since I put the slides together. In fact, I'm still working on it this morning, but it's probably about 90% accurate at this point. So what is the Capital Improvement Program? It's a comprehensive plan that outlines government entities' anticipated capital projects, such as infrastructure improvements and equipment, for a specific period. It serves as a roadmap for acquiring and improving public assets, prioritizing projects, and identifying funding sources. CIPs are crucial for managing growth, maintaining existing infrastructure, and implementing strategic plans. So what are our funding sources? The various funds within the district budget include Capital Projects Fund, 6A Fire Sales Tax Fund, Water Utility Fund, Wastewater Utility Fund, Conservation Trust Fund, and then we do have some sources of outside funding, such as grants and loans, many of those coming from the state of Colorado. How do we prioritize projects? We have a set list to assess projects, and they may have one or more of the following. Might be part of the strategic plan, could be included in a departmental master plan. It could be a rollover from a previous year, secured outside funding, legal or regulatory obligations, public health and safety, or if a project is shelf-ready. Next slide, please. So we'll start with the fire department. I won't go through every project here, and if you do have a question on any of these, I might be able to answer the question, or perhaps Chief Caserta could throw some input in there.
Sean, I just have one thing from the previous slide. Can we include in the sources of funding tax revenue?
Well, I think
They
a
fund it.
lot of the tax revenue goes into these funds.
So capital project fund, for instance, is a special revenue fund that general fund usually transfers funding to. That is where the tax revenue comes from.
I realize that, there's property tax there. I mean, I just don't think that the taxpayers are well represented there.
Okay, we can add something in there. This is the departmental budget funding. It doesn't, I guess, essentially
So it doesn't, I'll give an
categorize
example.
What are the
It-
funding sources? That's the question.
The funding sources are those funds which are comprised of revenue sources. For instance, capital project funds is usually
Where's
property taxpayer.
Okay, where's the-
Water utility is water ratepayers or connection fees.
I get it.
It's identifying
I see,
those.
I know what that's doing. It just seems like it's an arbitrary list of things that doesn't really relate back to the taxpayers.
Sure, we can add,
None of that would happen without taxpayers.
Sure, we can throw something in. All right, next slide, please. So the fire department, top priority for fire department is Fire Station 1 remodel. You guys are familiar with that one. It's still a topic of discussion today. SCBA's concrete replacement at Fire Station 3 on the south access, extrication equipment, overhead doors, and I think we've decided we don't need 4 new doors over there. I think we only need 2. Drainage improvements on the north side. We may have already solved that problem with rerouting the gutter system and drainage in and around the building. We're going to just kind of keep an eye on it. Maybe that project goes away. And some evaporated units there on Fire Station 1. Next slide. Water Department, I'm not going to go through all of those. We have 22 projects there. The one that's probably the most highest priority is Tank 140 construction. That is a replacement of Tank 100 that we had the failure up there last winter. So that's the top of the list. Also up there is the radio tower, which we will make part of that Tank 140 project as well. We do have a number of well development projects. I think we have 2 or 3 of those. And we also have a couple of filter rehabilitation projects over at the water plant, some looping water main projects, which we typically have one of those every year, and replacement of some generators. Next slide. Wastewater department, top priority for them is the upgrade of the UV project. So we're in the process of working on that now. Wastewater treatment plant expansion, the design portion of it only because we only have funding for that portion at this point in time. CIPP, that secured in place pipe project, as well as manhole lining. We will probably combine those 2 projects together. Generator replacements at lift station 1 and 2. That's actually a 2025 project that will roll over into 2026 because there is some lead time in getting those generators delivered. Lift station 2 pump replacement, camera inspection van, or refurbish the current van. We're still kind of evaluating what direction we want to go in that regard. Evaporative coolers at the wastewater treatment plant, and a piece of equipment, skid steer with some attachments. I know that we have added a couple projects both for water and wastewater in terms of some equipment, but that is not noted on this. Parks has 14 projects, 4 pieces of equipment. We have, top of the list is the Aquatic Center, followed by 2 trail projects, Purcell Boulevard Trail and Civic Center Trail Phase 1. We are hopeful, we know for sure one of them should be starting this year. Hopefully the second one will be starting a little bit later this year. Those 2 may or may not roll over into next year, kind of depending on when we get CDOT clearances and option letters for us to proceed. We do have Civic Center Dog Park. Again, we think that we are going to be able to build that one this year, but we put it in as a rollover project just in case. Civic Center Playground resurfacing, update Lavelle Park field lighting, number 1. Reconstruction and repurpose a pickleball court over at Lavelle Park. Civic Center splash pad resurfacing and equipment replacement. 340 Hans Peak Park fencing and resurfacing. That's creating a little bit bigger yard back behind the Parks and Rec office to create some more storage space. 2 utility vehicles, a golf cart, a park mower, a mower deck to go behind an existing tractor, and a skid loader. Next slide, please. For maintenance operations, our top priority is 529 yard fencing and improvements. 529, if you're not familiar, is formerly Fire Station number 2. We have repurposed that building for our fleet program, and what we would like to do is get some fencing and some gate to create some storage for equipment and materials and have them secured. We also would like to have a dump trailer to assist in our vegetative fuels mitigation program. Something that we can go up and pick up debris if somebody's dumped a bunch of debris in there, if we have to cut down some trees or something like that. And then we do have a railroad tie fence repair. We're in the process of knocking the railroad tie fence repair on Highway 50. We do have some areas internal that we are looking at, and we'll try to put together a project there. Administration building. That's one of the top priorities there, as well as HRIS system. That's a payroll platform that HR is looking at. And so our next steps is project development is going to coordinate with departments to develop budgetary information that will be contrived from opinions of probable cost, quotes, and we will include contingencies and inflation for 2026. So that's where we're at right now. Hopefully in the next several weeks, we will get all of the budgetary information aligned with these projects and equipment. We have, I'm going to say, in excess of 50, somewhere between 50 and 60 items on our CIP list for next year. Again, some of them are rollover, or potential rollover. But I'd be happy to answer any questions you guys might have.
What's a camera inspection van?
Camera inspection van, that's a van that they camera pipe with. Sewer line?
Sewer lines.
Yep, making sure they keep clear.
For this, giving an insight as he's developing and the budget is being developed for it, exactly what those costs are. If there are any projects that you were anticipating or missing or have questions about, this gives you a heads up before we get into the process of the budget. Not today for discussion, but one of the things that I know we'll have to have a discussion about when it comes to formalizing the budget is what that will look like in the budget book, because we've had conversations about should that include those probable costs, those estimated costs or not. So anticipating a conversation on that as well. But this was to give a insight on what's going in before we actually propose it.
One thing I thought about is we should probably start looking into resurfacing the asphalt trails. You know, putting that glaze on them all to protect them so they potentially quit cracking and extend the life before we got to replace them.
I do have money put in my maintenance part of it.
So yeah, if it's maintaining it, if it's crack sealing.
Every year. We can't
Not
go
just
wrong.
crack sealing, but doing the whole path.
Oh, like an overlay?
Yes. It'll freshen it up, it'll protect it.
There's
People do it with driveways all the time.
Yeah, there's several different ways of maintaining projects like that. The cheapest is trying to keep the crack sealed. The other would be kind of a seal coat on the surface, gives it a new surface.
That's what I'm talking about.
But you want to take a look and see if the surface is starting to ravel. In other words, the asphalt, the oil part of it is depleting and you have exposed aggregate and it's starting to ravel.
Right.
Then you'd want to put on a seal coat. And we can take a
Well,
look at those.
You kind of want to do it before that happens. That's the whole point. I mean, we do it on the East Coast all the time. I mean, this is just how you take care of the roads and
Absolutely.
extend the life of the asphalt is just constantly maintaining. Plus, it makes it look fresh. It'll look nice and new.
Yeah. We can take a look at some seal applications.
Yeah. You can use sprayers or brushes. It's a pretty simple process these days, from what I understand.
Any questions for Sean or us?
Along that line, I think I'd mentioned before, some sort of fund balance to roll over for trail maintenance, because, you know, we've got a lot of trail, and if that all happens at once, we won't have the money. Something in the budget for a line item.
So, yeah, they do have that line item that, as far as the operational maintenance upkeep of it, the capital projects we'll have a conversation about during the budget, how we're planning on being able to develop a fund balance that covers outlay over 10+ years.
Yeah.
We'll see the budgets for all those. Those are all next year projects? Yeah?
These are mostly next year's projects with some 2025 projects that might roll over.
Okay. So the one for 2026, and we'll see that through this budget process?
Yes.
Okay.
Guess I just have just one more general question. I think I've mentioned it before. I think you and I have talked about it, Christian, as this department was kind of developing. So each department is going through you to help identify and follow through with design, construction, et cetera, et cetera. Is that how that works? So it's not the department heads, they just tell you basically what they're wanting to do, we get it budgeted, and then you do the work? Is that?
So it starts off probably in May, June, where we sit down, senior leadership, all the departments, and they tell us what projects they believe that they need. And that's where we're at right now. We have all these projects kind of identified. We prioritize them And now we're in the process of trying to get some costs associated with them. From there, now it's project development's responsibility to develop the project. And some projects are more complicated than others. Some of them we have to start out with an RFP to select a consultant to do a project, whether it be an architect or somebody that is a multimodal transportation engineer. And then you go through the selection process, select your consultant, and then develop a professional services agreement to get them under contract, and they start the design. Project development also oversees the design and specifications that they prepare to make sure that they are designing the finished product that the departments want. Once we get to a point where we have a set of plans that we're happy with, then we put them out to bid. Sherry's going to hand you out a handout. Kind of shows you a typical process of a typical project. From there, it goes out to bid. The board awards it, and then it's project development also out in the field inspecting the work that they're doing all the pay applications, processing any change orders that might be required during the course of the project, and closing that project out.
Okay.
And how many of these do we have going on this year, or coming?
That's a difficult question for me to answer, because some of these projects we're designing and constructing all in 1 year. Some of them we know that we're not going to be able to construct, so we only have, say, design in 2025, construction in 2026. So I'd have to go in there and kind of add them up. But we've been separating projects so that they don't roll over by separating them up by design versus construction. If we don't think we can build them all in the same year, they become two separate projects. Two separate aspects of the same project.
Okay. And Christian, you feel we're at a phase at this point where we fully identified what this department is doing and its absolute need and everything?
Yeah, I think we started off with this department trying to resource a need that every department was essentially funding them for themselves without project managers or project specifications. Some had more experience than others, so this is helping with that. And now it's a question of what is the slate of projects that they have versus how many people we have, and are we keeping that aligned with how fast we want to get projects done compared to the cost it takes and the delivery method. So I think we're still assessing that part of it. I do know that there are a lot of projects on our project managers, and that's why you're still going to see rollovers that happen from year to year. But I think we've gotten at least that bridge of the experience with the folks who should be managing.
Yeah, I know we addressed that concern a couple years ago.
Yeah.
About continuing on with projects and making sure they're facilitated. I appreciate it. Thank you.
So can we get a list of the projects that are ongoing and what?
I think we have it. It's in our board docs.
So we have shared it as far as the it's a
Actual
public
now,
list.
not
Yes,
now
it's a
that
public
they're-
list that shows their in real-time progress updates. Get that to you too.
Yeah, that's in clear.
Is it in this board portal? In this board?
No.
Okay.
I'll send out a link this week or today.
And we update ClearGov monthly so that we have the most current information available possible. It's available on our website for not only you, but for the citizens to view.
These aren't just construction projects, are they? We don't have 60 construction projects going on.
Now, this does include some equipment involved.
So any equipment purchase or anything?
Anything that's capitalized.
This is what your project managers are
Yeah.
over.
So
All of this.
the projects themselves, project development, the equipment, for the most part is going to be maintenance operations, who has both fleet and facilities programs. Our deputy director of maintenance operations helps us get the pricing for the equipment, helps us secure the equipment once the funding becomes available next year.
Do they work in conjunction with Michael?
All the time.
Yes. They work with our Michael. So that's actually, the Department of Sean is technically three halves. If you don't include COA, you have the project development team, and then you have the maintenance operation team. Both are operational support for the rest of the district, and they do work with Michael, who's our procurement manager.
He's the procurement, so he would be the one that's out shopping for skid steer loader?
No, that would be Chris Duvall, our Deputy Director over Maintenance Operations.
Okay.
He handles the fleet, and most of these things are fleet-oriented or equipment-oriented.
Where they work with the procurement managers, make sure we're following our policies and everything associated with procuring that.
Okay.
Yeah, we scope and oversee development, where procurement oversees the policy and making sure that we are doing it correctly.
Any other questions? Okay. We'll set up for the next one.
Thank
you.
Which is the rest of the mid-year report. Thanks, Sean. Thank you.
Some guy hits a door. He's walking there. He's like, you know everything? He's going to the big brief. He's like, I got it all here. I'm ready. And the door opens. He freaks.
I'm gonna showcase this real quick. I'll click it. Christian. Good morning, Board. Katrina Peter, Chief Administrative Officer. Christian, if you're okay with that, I'm going to go ahead and show the current active projects just on how to access it from our main page so that the board can see our current capital projects. So this is accessible to all of the public currently on our Transparency Center. So that's just on ClearGov. If you go to our website and you type in Transparency Center in the top right corner, it'll take you to this page. It has an overview of the district, revenue sources, expenditures, and then if you go over to the project section of it, it highlights current capital projects. If you click on any of those capital projects, it'll give you an update as to where we are at with it. So if you scroll down a little bit, Bree, it will give up-to-date updates as far as what our staff are currently doing for each of those projects. So just as a reminder to everybody at home, you guys can see this at any point in time. This is accessible, and it is updated on a regular basis to show what our staff are currently working on and what the percentage of completion is for those projects. And then Bree, if you want to go to the strategic plan.
Thank you. All right, so good morning again, Board. So what we're going to go over next is the overall 5-year strategic plan for Pueblo West. It takes place from 2025 to 2029. This is a publicly accessible document, and it gets updated in real time. The only caveat, you'll see it embedded in the site to be able to access, and that's what's kept up to date. Any of the links usually reference towards a PDF that have been downloaded, saved at one point, so those get updated every so often. First, I'm going to go over a little bit of the history, why a strategic plan and this one has importance and how it's developed. Going even farther back, there was a previous 5-year strategic plan that was anticipated to end either in the end of 2024 or the end of 2025. It had a target date of 2020 to 2025, and we were recognizing that it was only, I think, about 4 to 6 pages. It talked about specific departments, specific projects, in some cases very granular things that I was looking for, seeing an aquatic center built in X year versus generally improving our innovation and technology when it came to being able to manage streets and roads. So had a little bit of vagueness and sometimes a little bit of specificity. What we realized as it was a little bit different on what year was going to end, we asked the board at that time what would make the most sense. We had board members who had been there for 2+ years. They had started getting their feet under them, understanding what was needed in the district, understanding the operations of the district. And so in conversation with them, we made a determination that it would be better to utilize this board, having that knowledge base, to be able to develop what our next strategic plan would look like. And so that launched what happened last year in 2024 in developing it. So with that board, what we first did was reach out and gave them a lot of surveys and a lot of questions to give answers to see what did they envision are the important principles about what Pueblo West is, what would they like to see, what are the issues that they see, and it was based on design methodology. Design methodology is as simple as, in 5 years' time in this case, I want Pueblo West to look like this. and then you compare it to what does it look like right now, and then you figure out why there are differences, and you start developing an operational approach to actually accomplish surmounting those obstacles or anything in between. So in that conversation, we took 2 days getting notes and getting feedback, identifying that there were certain things in certain areas that the board wanted. It first started with developing what we felt our priorities would be when it came to evaluating. One of the things that a previous strategic plan lacked was prioritizing, so that way you know at the end of the day if there are several projects or several goals you have in mind you want to accomplish and they come into conflict because there's only so much resource, whether it's revenue, whether it's time, which one takes precedence. And so they evaluated based on 3 major priorities: fiscally responsible being the most important, community focused being next, and then inclusive. The idea of being fiscally responsible is utilizing and being good stewards of the funding, whether it's ratepayers, whether it's taxpayers, all the funding coming in, and making sure we weren't growing past our britches. Community focus was looking at it as we are here to serve a community. The goal is to be able to provide for them those services, and inclusive being the idea that it's not just about a special interest, it's not just about a section of Pueblo West, it's about all of Pueblo West and all the different representations we have here. So those 3 priorities, as they were developed, came with ultimately 14 desired end states, all across from recognizing water rights to the fire department's funding permanency to organizational health to seeing things improve as far as the roads IGA, and they developed into these priorities that were then assessed based on those 3 principles and kept a 1 through 14 trend towards it. So a good example of that, and I know it's come up in conversation, people ask, why is the aquatic center as low as it is? Sorry, Carol. It's, I think, number 13 on that list. And that is because it is probably not the most fiscally responsible by itself. It's the one we anticipate will come with costs over revenue for it. So while it may seem like it's low because of that, that only comes from that priority or principle outlined for fiscally responsible. It's not because it lacks community focus, or that it's not inclusive, or that it's not a priority in a project we want to accomplish. It's just compared to some of the others, that's where it came from.
In addition to the unknown on the fire sales tax.
Yes. So a good example is water rights, the growth of Pueblo West, the ability for it to be able to be planned out and actually built out. That's why you see that number 1, and right after that, the fire department funding permanency. Not solving that is one of the least fiscally responsible things that the district could do. So that's why you see those priorities stack out that way. Another good example, the administration building, solving that. We recognize there was a lease expense approximately about between multiple locations of $140,000 with utilities and expenses towards it per year. Solving that in a way means that it's a reduced ongoing cost if it's something that we own and it's an asset that we have, and that's why it rose in priority for that fiscal responsibility compared to something like the aquatic center. And that's my opening. I'm sorry. I'll go over mission, values, and core priorities. So the vision and mission were both modestly adjusted from their previous strategic plan. The vision states to be a trustworthy metropolitan district that values responsible stewardship, sustainable growth, and collaborative partnerships to foster a thriving community. And the mission is to promote and preserve the quality of life by providing exceptional services for fire and emergency services, water, sewer, parks, recreation, and covenant enforcement in a manner that promotes fiscal responsibility, is community-focused, and inclusive. What I do want to point out about the mission is it took our services and outlined that's what we do, and then it included our priorities and how we evaluate it. That's where you're seeing the fiscally responsible, community-focused, and inclusive. And then internally for the district, how we, as our employees, staff, how we interact with each other in the organization, and external to our organization. The 3 values we came up with were integrity, stewardship, and respect. And those ones account for integrity being honest, ethical, and consistent with our words and actions, doing what is right even when no one is looking. Stewardship, we represent a long-term commitment to selflessness, responsibility, and community while meaningfully contributing to the greater good. And respect, we value diverse perspectives and contributions, treating everyone with fairness and dignity. And that's the opening part of our strategic plan, our values, our mission, our vision. We'll start I'll open up for questions if there are any before we go into each priority and where we're at.
Katrina, who updates the ClearGov? Is that each? Is it one person?
No,
or is
so
it each department?
all departments have
Okay.
access, and they all update according to whatever their impact is on that particular strategic plan item.
Okay, thanks.
If there are no other questions before Brian gets started on his items, I do want to advise the public on how to access this remotely from home. If you go to our Pueblo West Metro District webpage, you can either type in the top right corner of the search bar, you can type in strategic plan and it'll take you to the embedded version, and that is an up-to-date version on what our strategic plan looks like as of today's date. So as staff are putting in new information, that is accessible immediately to the public. Otherwise, you can also go to your government and then click on strategic plan or government transparency, and it'll take you to the overall government transparency page where you can insert a public records request, you can look at our rules and regulations, you can look at our annual report. But there is not also a new piece that's just been added by our business administration department, so I really want to highlight their hard work on this. They created a new section of that government transparency section titled Understanding the Strategic Plan, and it outlines every single 14 key priority, gives them an overview of what those priorities are, why they were ranked the way that they were, how they compare to other priorities, as well as the current state and desired end state. So it's really a comprehensive look as to how we got to this point where we're at now, and it has the link to the embedded version of the strategic plan, so everyone can see it from home. So, Brian, if you want to get started.
Yeah, good morning, Board. Brian Eggy, Chief Operating Officer. So if you go into the interactive side, you can click in and each one will embed down further and further some of the key priorities. So starting off with our first priority, which is water rights, and keep in mind, you know, we're 8 months into a 5-year plan. So some things are going to show some great progress because we've made some, you know, initial leaps and bounds, and other things are going to look like they're stagnant, but some of those are just based upon the timing and dealing with other agencies. So we had 3 main focus areas: acquiring and managing water resources, integrating into existing or emerging partnerships, and developing intergovernmental agreements. Just to highlight some key aspects of that, we did hire a water resource manager. Specifically, I think we all were impressed with Elise's report and what she's doing, along with Jeffrey. The nice thing about the webpage, if you go into it, you can dig down. Water rights is like an ongoing project. It's kind of like breathing. You don't really say it's the most important thing you did today, but it's the most important thing you did today. So if you dig in, you can see, for example, we are on the Colorado Canal, Lake Meredith, Twin Lakes Reservoir and Canal Company, Arkansas River Watershed, Arkansas River Basin Roundtable, the Colorado Water Conservancy District, the Colorado Water Congress, and Water Conservation Board, along with the Upper Arkansas Water Conservation District. So those are just elements of things that we deal with every day, the networking, the talking, to get us where we're at. And one of the key things we're in is we're talking with the Pueblo Board of Waterworks and getting more water in that area.
Sorry for interrupting, how are we doing on that?
It's interesting because the initial meeting, they were very excited and it seemed like they wanted to move at a very fast pace, and now we've struggled. I think we have the meeting next week with them. Middle of September for our next meeting for next steps. So they were going to do a raw water analysis, and they were waiting for that report to get back before they could set up the next meeting. So hopefully mid-September, we should have our second meeting, which has been a little slower than we thought it would be.
Are we in our last year of water lease with them?
I want to say it was 2028, but I can't remember off the top of my head.
Last year, water,
A water lease with them? When does our?
I think it's 2028, we'll double check.
We'll go water and the water lease?
I think we got one more year. I'll check.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
So. All right. If there's any other questions, I'll go into priority number 2, which is our fire department. And the main thing there, you know, we've basically shown about 20% complete. The focus area is maintaining the operational posture with sufficient revenue, an education command, and a ballot presentation. So moving along in that, we're obviously working closely with the fire department. We've worked with some marketing, developed an initial marketing strategy, planning and timing where we want. You know, part of the Christian, when we talk about where these priorities fell out, obviously there's a lot of contingencies with this fire department funding becoming permanent, most notably the admin building and then the aquatic center. So hence why it's number 2. You're going to see most of the action in terms of moving forward with like the campaign and looking at the ballot initiative starting early next year, 2026.
So campaigning in 26 for a ballot measure in 26?
Yes,
Okay.
correct. And part of that strategy is, you know, if you don't succeed, try again, at least if we're not successful in 2026.
At least it's not hitting the
Get
budget
another
right away.
shot at it.
Yeah.
And it's like politics, seems the more it gets out there, sticks in their heads, right? Like presidential candidates, they fail, and then about the fifth time they run, their president.
Well, we have a general election, we have an election for the district in 27. If we do it next year, we have to pay for it.
Correct.
26, so it expires in 30, right? So I would think 27, 28, 29, if it didn't pass, would be sufficient.
I think one of the aspects of it, looking at it from special election versus general elections, is that historically they've been more successful when they've been on November ballots for getting turnout towards it. And I think that is how both 6C and 6A were presented, and they had pretty good success rates, or at least they were the success rates.
We'll have a general in 28 too, right?
Okay, yeah, that's why we're talking about it, right? Make
For the
those
board to
decisions.
decide.
I was just curious, did we ever consider just putting it on this November, this year?
I think by the time we had this solidified and looking at it, we were trying to make sure that we had ample time to be able to do the campaign. And actually, I think we thought it would be a longer campaign, when the reason we're looking at early of 2026 to even start that campaign is that as we had got advice from a consultant, no cost. But the idea of it being that if you do it for too long, then you lose power for what you're asking for if it's convoluted with other things going on at the same time. So he actually said that he would recommend starting early next year for that campaign. So now that's why we're looking at it this way. We probably missed the boat to start for this year. At the point we learned that we were probably ahead of the game already for what we were planning for.
I was just thinking to Brian's point of just firing it out. I know there's, just firing it out there on a ballot, see if it passes. If it doesn't, then put it back on in 26.
There's a cost every time you do it.
I get that, but if we got it done this year, then we don't have to wait a whole nother year to clear out other projects.
I don't think you have enough time to get it done this year.
I'd have to double check. I think we missed at least one of the time frames, either at the end of July or August, to start for this ballot.
So it's due in September, right?
Yeah, I think fully. And we would have missed that campaign part.
Okay.
Yep, and then to answer your question, the end of 2027 is the end of the agreement with Board of Water Works.
Okay.
So, and then moving on to priority number 3, one of President Vickers' favorite subjects, Desert Hawk. Director Victor's face probably sums it up well for those who can see that.
Well, how do you come to 22% completion?
Yes. So we can only control what we can control, and that's one of the frustrating things. There's a lot of entity, and we get further down, there's the exit 108, another thing that we're involved in, but it's mainly a CDOT project. So yes, we've done our internal analysis, but yes, we're pretty much at a standstill until some key factors start getting decided on. And it is kind of up in the air until some decisions are made, and we're going to be a little stagnant at this point. We know that the golf course manager is retiring. We know there's outstanding debt, and we know that the irrigation system needs repaired. So there's large bills and a lot of uncertainty, and a lot of difficult decisions to be made, and that's kind of the update.
And we're having a hard time getting information.
Yep.
Yes.
And going back to the water, we don't know, but we suspect there's pretty significant water. Sorry. Going back to the water, there's a pretty significant water loss at the golf course. We're not sure, but it could be as much as 200 homes. I think it's what we calculated, if the leak is as big as we think it is. So it's kind of imperative that and I know it's not our fault. We're
Right.
Yeah.
we're stymied in the mud because we can't get anybody to move on this.
Yeah,
It's
and I think
important.
that's the struggle, that people realize that something needs to happen, but and everybody kind of is like in that waiting mode, and we feel a little
Mhm.
held back until we
Yeah.
get that clearance, and it's some difficult decisions have to be made.
No, I'll kind of interject just because something that's important about how the strategic plan was finalized, what we're looking at is we looked at things that were achievable, obviously optimal for 5 years. We knew probably for water rights, it was a potential we wouldn't solve everything within 5 years. There was potential for that. So looking at it as different ways to be able to say, what is it we're actually looking for to achieve in 5 years? if you go to Desert Hawk, the desired end state, kind of to the point of why there's the progress. It's not saying 22% progress of every problem that might be solved with a golf course, but the desired end state being the county and district agree and execute a joint plan to sustain the Desert Hawk Golf Course leading up to and through the transition. Any change agreeable to both parties and negotiate confirmed in a new updated or amendment to an IGA. It's looking at those things that we know are within the control and within the span to be able to achieve for the golf course at least being sustainable, whether that's owned by Pueblo County, whether it's owned by Pueblo West, whether it's a joint ownership, whether it's private entity. Those aren't the things that it's trying to solve necessarily by itself, but those are topics that are in conversation.
Basically, the only thing that's done so far is just our internal analysis.
What we've had control over, we have at least accomplished. The biggest thing I think is that right now, and this for generally public's awareness, the golf course is currently owned and operated by Pueblo County. An IGA exists that stipulates it will transition into county district ownership, but only once all debts are paid. While the lease of the golf course, the overall expenses just for paying it off have been paid, there are still debts existing for unpaid water, water provided towards it, and additional capital that I think the county has funded over time. And there has not been a plan yet on how to pay for that, or if there's going to be a deviation from why we would not pay for that or expect a payment for that. That has not been discussed, and it's been up in the air.
Mm-hmm.
So why hasn't the county, I mean, I'm still trying to understand this golf course. It's the counties, correct? And how are we at play in this?
There's an IGA between Pueblo West and Pueblo County where we both paid about half the overall certificates of participation, the bonds essentially, to pay off the golf course to own it. That has since been complete, but the IGA still stipulates that the joint ownership has not happened until all debts are paid as well. So we are, at the simplest terms, we do not own it, we do not operate it, but in the future we may. And the question is, are there things that we're just expecting over time? The IGA will play out as it is, which might take 40, 50 years for those debts to be paid. Or are we going to engage and try to solve it in a different way or a faster way?
In the meantime, there's a committee that's involved in trying to make these decisions, and Bill and I are on it on our sides, then we have county commissioners on their side, as well as a couple public members. And we're trying to get everybody together to work on how we can make the golf course sustainable on its own without the need for metro funds or county funds.
Right.
Including the $5+ million irrigation system that they want to install. So the problem is we can't seem to get everybody together.
We can't.
And get the data that we've requested.
So if we have a committee on this, what's preventing the county from fulfilling their obligations? Because it's our water that's being wasted right now.
Let me clarify on that. The golf course is paying for its water now. And I think since 2011, I want to say, they have been paying for their water based on the agreement costs. It's a debt of unpaid water that existed prior. It's about $1.28 million, I think. That has not been paid. It's non-interest bearing, but it's still owed from the golf course to Pueblo West. In addition, I understand that they also owe from the golf course to the county, I think it's about $3 million in capital funding that they've provided over time. The golf course is now making revenue above expenses, and I think has been since about 2021. So it's only recently that even the conversation could take place that revenue should be going towards paying off debts, but it hasn't seen it come to fruition yet. And to Vice President Axworthy's point, the IGA just has a golf course management board that the county has 3 appointees to, the district has 3 appointees to, and there's 1 joint appointee. I think we have 3 board members. We have you 2 and Greg Roberts now. And they have their county commissioners, and then there's a joint appointee, Mr. Sam Prohl, who exists as that management board. Their responsibilities make the golf course successful and operate as well as it can and should between those. But it is the board's responsibility, the Board of County Commissioners and the Board of Directors, for us, responsible for negotiating IGA, and if there's going to be any changes, or just the expectations of what an amortization or debt payment plan could look like.
Were you referring to the leaks, the water that's being wasted?
Right.
Yeah, that's what he's talking about.
That too, I mean.
I answered clearly the question. So as far as that, I understand that irrigation system is intended to be able to develop hopefully solutions to all the leaks, or at least the majority of leaks, but it is, I think, a $5.3 million cost, for which the golf course itself does not provide enough revenue in its fund balance to be able to achieve. So the question is where they're going to get that, whether it's going to be a debt that the golf course does, whether it's going to be a loan from either the county, the district, or both, whether it's going to try and solve it in a different way. That has not been determined based on the golf course management board and discussion.
And that's right, if it's a county's property, so to speak, right?
It is, it's.
Technically, with
so-
IGA, it's.
And I brought up earlier, back in the past, that the county set aside in their $325 million budget for certain projects or unexpected projects or something like that. I'm like, I don't understand why the county's having a hard time fulfilling this obligation or their obligation, because in a sense, they should be the ones trying to help overhaul. I mean, we can help if necessary, but I mean, it's their responsibility. So I'm kind of confused on why they're not having.
It's, well, we have a hard time getting together. We have meetings, we're supposed to have meetings quarterly. It doesn't
Right.
happen very often,
Right.
does it?
I think
Supposed to
we
have
meet
meetings.
quarterly, but that's what I try to meet.
I think,
once a week.
yeah, but for instance, they're supposed to, the board is supposed, the management, Mr. Zaremba is supposed to present a budget to the committee by July 15th for next year. We don't get it. We don't have it, don't have it yet. Our last quarterly meeting, we asked for financials from Mr. Zaremba so that we could kind of make a plan as to how to become profitable. Haven't got it, so haven't seen it. So we get no input, and it's frustrating that we don't seemingly get any help from the county commissioners on that.
So there's
respect.
no discipline action for him not presenting what he's supposed to by certain dates?
He's retiring in March, which was one of the reasons we wanted the financials, so we could come up with a plan to replace him and hopefully become even more profitable.
More profitable than him
So you
to
can't-
help self-sustain the program and pay for the irrigation system.
I mean, if he's not fulfilling what he's supposed to do, could we expedite his retirement?
Pardon me?
Could we expedite his retirement if he's not fulfilling what he's supposed to be doing?
Well, I would assume that would fall upon the committee to be able to do that, but
They need a replacement.
what do you do?
Yeah.
Carol, I think Carol.
Yeah, so it's tricky because we don't have full authority to make this happen.
Yeah.
But on Bill and my side and Greg's side, we probably should push a little more to have these committee meetings more regularly and get some answers. So we need to work on that.
I mean, we
I
agreed to
get
them.
it's tricky.
We all agreed to them, but they never come to fruition.
I'll share quick, just mostly opinions on this. I think a lot of times the golf course was seen as a low priority, particularly when it wasn't making money above expenses, or revenue above expenses. And so that tone has shifted a little bit, but I probably argue, or I see an argument for it's about $1 million of a budget compared to even it's $325 million for the entire county. Not making excuses, and I can't speak to obviously their budget decisions for it, but I think it's fallen low on their priority list so long as it's not bleeding. The question about the board's responsibility and Mr. Zaremba as the appointed or hired agent is very similar to this board and myself. I'm the equivalent of him on that, or he's the equivalent of me, and the board is the equivalent of this board where those responsibilities lie. So to your point, if the board felt that they were not seeing the obligations met, they could have those expectations and decide what to do. But as what Brian pointed out, doesn't necessarily solve the problem right away, without at least somebody replacing them.
But again, it's, go back to the water issue, it's Pueblo West water that's being hemorrhaged out and being used not properly. And
To that
and
point, they
so-
are paying for the water, but to your point, that's water we would prefer to conserve, and that's
Right.
probably why it should be generating a drive for us to wanting to solve that.
Right. Okay, anyway, I digress.
That's a fair point.
Yeah.
It's a,
I think it's gonna fall on us to move this forward.
Okay. Anything more on the golf course?
Sorry, thanks.
thanks, Brian.
He's still going.
Still good.
All right, next priority is master planning, which includes a couple different moving pieces. One is funding, and then the second is the operational departments. So we have tasked all of our operational departments with at least a rough draft of master planning for full build out by the end of this year. So that way we can kind of bring in that information and understand the potential impacts to our administrative departments and start planning how we were going to be forecasting when it comes to our budget. Alongside that is we will be creating a capital outlay policy to ensure that we are properly budgeting year over year to ensure that we have funding for both personnel costs, operating costs, and capital costs. So that is kind of where we're at with as far as the master plan. Any questions on that particular priority?
I did want to just add, I think President Vickers is one of the ones that you, I think, asked for or talk or mention as we're having conversations. There is master plans in existence, whether it's the Parks Master Plan or the Water Wastewater one. They have been done externally. There have in the past been internal master plans, whether for the fire department or a specific department. What we're at the very least doing is trying to make sure that we have internally a master plan, hopefully to cover both 5 years and the full build out of Pueblo West. And that will help us be able to generate, when it comes to capital outlay programs, funding that can then achieve those, so that way we're not having to create almost emergencies that are happening within a couple of years. When we realize we're out to that, we have the funding that we can draw from.
The current master planning for water and wastewater have been uploaded into the strategic plan. The parks document is a little bit bigger than allows to be uploaded currently, so we are going to have to work on that. And then we will upload the fire department's master plan as well, so it does show what we are currently operating off of as well. Next item, or next priority, is the admin building. So as you're aware, we did purchase 63 Spalding in June of this year. The design for the second part of the admin building on 79 Spalding is currently in the RFP committee review process. There was a meeting scheduled for the 21st, which has been moved to the 27th of this month. So that committee will be reviewing that policy. And I believe Director Vickers is on that committee?
Yeah, I was scheduled to go, but I'm out of town on the 27th, so I can't make it.
Okay.
And then I think you're the other one?
You gonna be there?
We have also been working with DOLA on a grant to help cover the costs of the design of the building. So an amendment to that contract was sent over, I believe, at the beginning of last month.
And that's generally what the first holdup was on delay for finalizing project scope.
Yeah.
Number 6.
How's the project scope coming along now?
That's what they're meeting next week to
That's what they're gonna talk about.
finalize before it gets sent out.
So we include in the RFP?
Yes.
Okay,
So
gotcha.
the second part of it was just scheduling conflicts.
Okay.
It's gonna be a meeting on what the design criteria is for the building itself.
Gotcha, thank you.
Sizes, rooms, which I think the board should have a conversation about some point.
So that'll be a question, because the last direction we got from the board was assigning those board members as the committee people to be able to
Well, after the
revise
meeting,
that.
I think.
And that intent was then to send that RFP out after that, not come back to the board. That was why we assigned board members as part of it. So
Okay.
if that is deviating, that's a conversation we need.
Was
to
that
have.
on this board?
That was
Yeah,
this board.
that was this board. And I trust the two of you. I mean, that's why the two of you are on that board, or on that committee.
It's just me on one, or whatever day that is.
Yeah.
We can still send ahead so that way you can provide comments for it though.
Okay.
I think we're on the same page.
It's on the 27th, I'll be in the air, so I won't be able to phone in.
That's fair. We can send it to you so you can look at it and then develop
Okay,
comments.
well, I know.
And we can always reconvene if necessary.
All right, moving on to number 6, which is water storage. Basically broken down to 2 areas, working on partnerships and then actual physical storage, reservoirs, and other storage rights. Actually, thanks to the board, we've made progress on this in the purchase of the reserve and then the agreement for the restoration of yield has been our 2 major milestones on that, which like anything with water, it's just that continuous building relationships and doing what you want. It sounds like Oak Creek in the city of Fountain is starting conversations again. So it's slow moving, but that'll be another project that we'll be looking at getting involved in.
Did you say Fountain?
Or Florence, I'm sorry, yeah. One's north and one's west, with Florence. But like anything, that's probably at least 10 years down the road, I would say.
Is that-
But a lot of entities.
Is that the one that's been talked about since the 80s?
Probably. I think
Is that the conversation that's been going on since the 80s?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, okay,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And I think the railroad's involved in that one too, and there's just a lot of different, yeah.
Okay.
Our water attorney, Bob Crossett, was also involved.
So, yeah.
Okay, priority number 7 is diversifying revenue streams. So as a part of developing the strategic plan, we identified the current state of the district relies heavily on property and sales tax for funding sources. So we are also limited legally and structurally. Special districts are restricted on certain access to like federal funding. So we are looking to try to create a more balanced and diversified revenue portfolio. So right now that includes monitoring potential House bills. House Bill 2766, Special District Fairness and Accessibility Act was introduced in April of this year. We are monitoring that. That would basically recognize a special district through federal like assistance and financial assistance programs so we can get more access to funding. We are also looking at utility easement and franchise fees, examining land sales, and just kind of trying to do that financial analysis to understand potential implications of implementing other types of revenue, whether it be sales tax, impact fees, anything like that, that we could potentially diversify our income. Okay. Next up is fostering public health. I'm sorry, not public health, public trust. So our business administration department has taken a critical role in this, or had a critical role in this. They have launched that section of the I'm blanking on the title right here. The transparency section of our website that outlines understanding the strategic plan. They have worked really hard on developing the website to try to make it more user-friendly and make sure that information such as our annual report, such as the strategic plan, anything that the public has really expressed an interest in learning more about is more accessible and more user-friendly to be able to read. They have also been doing fireside chats, the local government 101 videos, the open houses. As the board is very much aware, you guys have been participating in various community engagement events, and this is all about trying to develop more of a relationship with the public so they understand what exactly we are working towards. And so when it comes to pursuing, a permanent sales tax or getting buy-in from the public as to what we are trying to accomplish, this will help facilitate that because it develops a level of understanding as to what we are doing and why we are doing it. So as you spoke about with the rate analysis, there needs to be a level of comprehension from the public as to what we are doing and why. This is a part of that process. Priority number 9 is maintaining organizational health. If you look behind you, there is our core values that our staff have worked hard to identify. This is what our core values for the district are, and it helps us to hold each other accountable and ensure that we are acting in the best interest of our constituents. So our core values have been identified as integrity, stewardship, and respect. We have implemented these across the district, and we are working on public information campaign or an internal information campaign to ensure that all of our staff understand that this is what we are going to be holding each other by. We also implemented the compensation ratio at the beginning of this year. That has been rolling out very well. Staff are, I think, more inclined to start pursuing more education and start trying to develop their skill set, which in turn is helping us be more better at our jobs to be able to help address different things that are coming down. We are also doing a cyclical pay analysis. So that will be looking at what our current practices are and analyzing pay and understanding that whether it be a 3 or 5 year analysis to ensure that we are keeping up with market. We have a policy in place to ensure that we are up to date on that. And the last thing is the training and professional development coordinator. That position was approved as part of the 2025 budget. We did hire that individual, or that position filled it, but it unfortunately was vacated, and so we were in the process of trying to get it refilled. The purpose of that person is to basically provide consistency and training across the district. So that person will be responsible in creating a consistent policy and practice when it comes to training and development, and having that generalized oversight for that training program. Any questions about that?
What's an example of training that I guess needs done across the district-wide?
So if you look at any of the departments, there's obviously specialties for utilities, for fire department, anything like that. What we are identifying is that there needs to be a level of oversight for that training to ensure that, for example, Fire Station 1 is consistent in training compared to Fire Station 2, and that we are meeting FPA standards. And so the same thing with utilities, is understanding that, you know, there may be a process in place to obtain those certifications. Are we pursuing all avenues? Are we getting all the appropriate OSHA trainings, all the appropriate, trying to think of some of the other ones.
Okay, I see what you're.
Thank you. So we're just trying to make sure that it's consistent and there's a level of oversight for that across the district.
Okay.
Isn't that the department head's responsibility?
It is their responsibility to implement the training, but what we did identify throughout this process is when it comes to turnover rates, we understood that one of the main concerns was that people felt like the training was inadequate, or that there wasn't a proper level of oversight to ensure that the standards were being held high for training. And so this person was to go out there and help try to understand what new trainings may be available, help create a curriculum for those trainings, and then roll those out to the departments to ensure that the department directors are holding their staff accountable to those training guides.
So was there a new department created to do this?
No, that falls underneath the HR department.
Similar to safety, for instance, every leader is responsible for safety across it, but having a safety manager helps ensure that there's that consistency.
There are programs out there that have video banks and training modules already set up. It's a matter of finding them and seeing if they fit your program. You may want to take a look at that, or have the HR director take a look at that before we start spending money on another salary. I brought it up before, but it wasn't really looked at.
I think that was part of the concern that was identified is we could do that. We could do like video trainings.
Basically
But
outsourcing
we need somebody that can create those videos for us. So when it comes to maybe doing a purchase order, what does that process look like internally? How do we go about doing that? Is there to avoid wasting more staff time of having to constantly reach out to Mike Winters to understand, like, did I do that correctly, or maybe rejecting a purchase order because it was done incorrectly? We can have a standardized practice in place for when staff are onboarded, so they can learn those things, and we're not taking away staff time and not doing them correctly the first time. Making sure that we have that level of training and understanding to do things correctly.
Yeah,
And
I
it's
think if you
consistent.
dive down that deep, it's a matter of a department creating their own SOPs. I don't know if you want a third party in another department handling that. That doesn't make much sense if they don't know what's expected. That's just my opinion. Anyway.
Tend to agree with that.
Oh, sure, and you might have, actually, both might have experience with this. A lot of recurring training or annual refresher training, the things that people experience in the military to have is probably a click through and get through check block. Or this is not intended to add to that. The training professional development coordinator is ideally positioned or staged to be able to help identify where we're having training deficiencies and be able to resource specifically for those, whether it's the C&D operators or plant operators who might be running into an issue where they don't have SOPs, they don't have training, they don't have those things, and needs to be identified and work with somebody who has that background to do it, and then identifying to what Katrina was bringing up about those standards across the entire district. I would tend to agree the idea of having you know, a third party try to tell you how you want to do those things would probably not work very well, which is why they're typically showing, for instance, finance is the pay-com, or not pay-com, the procurement, the web purchasing, developing those so that we can be standardized across districts. Everybody's using finance as a system rather than trying to necessarily say everybody should do what fire does or does something else. It is something that we'll probably have to continue evaluating to see the effect and see if it's worth that. Salary, but right now that is the approved one just to see and hopefully bridge that gap that our own employees identified as what was missing.
And correct me if I'm wrong, did we not just hire a trainer or a guy that was developing that, or he's not with us anymore?
Yes, that position was approved for the 2025 budget. We did fill that position,
Oh,
and then
okay.
it subsequently became vacated. So we are in the process of going through applications now to refill that position.
I think I'm up because nobody else wants to talk about perfecting the roads IGA and MS4 for number 10.
Yeah, there's no such thing.
Yeah, so what this goal, this priority is really getting at, we have done the transition of road maintenance to Pueblo County. It's not anything about the actual transition portion of it, but there are elements of the IGA that have not been completed, and they generally bridge across a couple different areas. One, we talk about is the MS4 and stormwater. It was contemplated in the IGA that either a transition or some agreement would be followed through with by the end of 2023, and it is 2025. And since we have only been able to start developing at least agreeable terms currently, where stormwater, drainage, the MS4 permit really come down to is that roads themselves have drainage issues with it that both impact property owners and the roads themselves. There are concerns about that. There's no question about that drainage when it's in the rights of way. But what happens when it's coming from outside the rights of way, where it's coming from a easement or property before it gets to that road? That's where our first big challenge for just operating on drainage was, and currently the district and county operate mutually agreeable terms of we do pay half cost both sides if there is some work that has to happen, whether it's cleaning out a ditch or any type of infrastructure that might be in place. The stormwater portion of it, when we get to compliance and the actual MS4 permit, we've generally been locked in a standstill. The district owns a standard permit issued by CDPHE, Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, and it wishes to go and transition into a non-standard permit. And the main difference of that is a standard permit, you care about everybody in your boundary. A non-standard permit, you only care about your own activities within the boundary. That would help, I think, align a lot of things, both for stormwater projects and infrastructure, whether it's commercial or the county. But I do know that that comes with additional compliance costs and oversight. I do have an update quick for that, and that is that beginning of last month, Gregory George with the county did reach out. They have a stormwater coordinator who's going to begin evaluating models for proposals to both boards. We're going to be working with their stormwater administrator to develop an expected draft presentation in about 1 to 2 months, so either next month or October, of what proposals that could look like. So that's the stormwater piece to it, plus the idea that they did talk about the drainage, well, the drainage portion of it. On the drainage portion of it, they did talk about doing a study, a comprehensive study across Pueblo West, and being able to develop what those costs, what that infrastructure would look like. And I think once that is complete, there'll be future conversations between both boards of how to want to approach it. At this point, our board has not determined how they would like to participate in that study, though it was proposed to do a 50% cost of both.
Oh, how much?
How much? Yeah, it's about $500,000, yeah.
Oh,
And that was,
project, our contribution would be half.
oh, yeah. And it would take 2 years to complete. 2 years. So I'm sitting there thinking, a few months, for a study, and, let's get it done so we can move forward. Now, 2 years. Just like the golf course, the pending golf course issues that we need to resolve, I think Bill and I will probably, so correct me if I'm wrong, don't want to speak for you, but we need to apply some more pressure on getting that to fruition. I think the same applies with the roads.
Mm-hmm.
For the last 2 years, we've been questioning the funding. We really aren't getting anywhere. The first year we were told that they have to look at appropriations the following year for their budget in order to correct any slights that were brought up. And so we waited, and the next budget comes out and still no correction. in my opinion. So here we are again, waiting another year for budget appropriations for the following year to see if more money is appropriated towards Pueblo West roads, beyond that of which is our additional sales tax that we are paying as Pueblo West residents. So, and to fill people in, the question has been brought up, okay, we're paying this extra 1% sales tax. How much of our original property taxes that we're paying towards county, how much of that is going towards Pueblo West roads? You know, what's that fair share look like? The county came back at, stating that there's this mapping system that they're wanting to try so they can take a look at, and correct me if I'm wrong, Christian, take a look at where those funds are going and why. That really didn't solve our answer, or solve our question. But again, I think we really need to be a little more headstrong in pushing for, more of the county funds being appropriated towards Pueblo West roads if we're ever going to see any improvement in our roads. The 1% sales tax does not cover what is needed out here. That was supposed to help supplement and improve the road system quicker, if that's my understanding, beyond that of the funding that we should already be receiving, if that makes sense.
The only thing
Go ahead.
I was going to say, the only thing I would add to that is that the 1% sales tax on its initiation helped approve a transition that took place much faster. The original roads IGA had a 60-month or 5-year transition process, which meant that when we sent notice, I believe at the end of 2021, that triggered that we wouldn't start seeing Pueblo County maintain the road until the beginning, essentially, of 2027. Because I think we did it in November of 2021. And so what that really results in is that they took over the roads about 4 years ahead of schedule in 2023. The 1% sales tax was the condition for them to do that. But to the point of why a sales tax, I can understand the take that it helps them transition faster, see that revenue source. But the final goal is not for that sales tax to be what maintains the roads. It's supposed to be what improves the roads. And so seeing that fund balance, or seeing the fund appropriations over time balance towards that. In our last spring meeting, they did talk about that there was their own road and bridge fund supplementing it, and they're working on a system to be able to show those charges. But they also said that that was not the majority of where the funding was coming from either. So being able to see a plan that they eventually transition into, ideally without the sales tax, showing that at least they're dollar for dollar, as close as possible, county and Pueblo West roads are getting the same bang for the buck. And then the sales tax being on top of that is our ideal vision of that. They seem to be open to that conversation, but we just haven't seen that actually play out.
Yeah. It's been 2 years, which is the frustrating part.
Yeah.
So, if we don't see it in this third year, then
I don't know what you do. I had a pretty extensive conversation with one of the commissioners about that. Taking the whole pool of their county funds, what percentage of it goes to roads? They didn't know, didn't have that figure, but my point was, if it's 10% or if it's 20%, then 20% of Pueblo West money ought to be going to roads. And I don't think we see that. We're just looking for some tangible evidence that there's additional funds being spent, and we're not getting any.
Does the 1% get separated from the actual, so it is, there is.
They have separated that. I think Christian and, I think, right? No? Yes?
It's gone back and forth a little bit, but yes. So there is a road and bridge fund that previously existed for Pueblo County roads, which is also where they transfer money for us for HUTF. In 2023, if not 3 and 4, there was a separate Pueblo West Road and Bridge Fund within it. It seems now that they have one expenditure account for it, and they're accounting for the revenues they have one revenue fund and 2 separate expenditure accounts. So a question and concern that's come up is making sure that the revenue and the sales tax is tracking with the expenditures of Pueblo West. As long as they're spending to the dollar, that is not an issue. But if they ever had funds that they didn't spend year to year, it's ensuring that it rolls over into future years, specifically for Pueblo West roads.
And that was just to track the sales tax.
Yes.
So the additional question is, okay, so how much of the rest of the road and bridge funding stream going to Pueblo West roads? Because we do pay taxes as residents for that service. Beyond, that's beyond the 1%.
And it goes back to what he said, if we're about 30% of the roads that are in the county or in the the
Yeah.
right the
And we've
county,
tried that in the meetings. We've
then
tried
it
to break
should
it
be
out.
relatively equal to what we have as far as the road
Yeah.
infrastructure.
Well, but and to their point, I mean, there's some validity to their statement that, you know, they maintain roads in Beulah and Boone, places that are not densely populated, that don't raise a lot of property tax, but there should be some, I mean, that's a good excuse, but there should be some way to come up with a tangible amount that should be spent in Pueblo West.
There's three major funding sources for county road and bridge: property tax, sales tax, and a highway user tax fund.
HUF.
Property tax is not their majority even of their own, it's mostly sales tax for them. And then HUTF is based on state funding that's given to the county, and we had previously gotten a pass-through. If you use how HUTF is calculated, there's, I think it's asphalt, I forget what the other two are, but mountainous, and there's another one essentially if there's one for swamps. Where it is for it. There are ways to show that there's a difference, like 3-to-1 cost for an asphalt road or paved road versus a gravel road.
Right.
And for instance, absolutely right, we don't have any bridges within Pueblo West. We don't have the mountainous roads within Pueblo West, but we do have a higher proportion of paved roads than someplace like Beulah or Rye. So how that's being calculated is something that I think we've asked for as well.
What, do we know what the percent of the county's budget is derived from Pueblo West?
You mean
Does that
revenue?
make sense?
Their revenue?
Revenue,
for property?
yeah.
I don't know the number off the top of my head.
I think you
I
did
did-
provide that at
At
one
one
point.
point, I did know that,
Yeah.
or at least estimated it, but they have a large revenue, let's say property tax, and then they have the assessment that actually goes to Pueblo West, and then they give that out towards that. But how theirs is calculated and what's going on, I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, I'm just curious, like if we make up 50% of their revenue for the whole county, and I don't
think
know.
so.
So mill-wise, we represent a pretty rough number of 20% of their property tax. On the bill, you see in Pueblo West, but that's not accounting for their revenue they're receiving outside of Pueblo West. So out of the total assessment for us going there, I can tell you that number, but I can't tell you how that compares to the rest of the revenue they're collecting off the top of my head. The only-
Property taxes, they generate about $9 million, roughly,
For us,
for us.
we get about 8-9 million.
8-9 million for property tax, so that's
That's
20
our share.
cents of,
That's our
you know,
share.
that's
That's our share.
20%
So
of what
that'd be
they.
about out of 40 million maybe.
Yeah.
Just what's happening in Pueblo West. The only update before I forget is that we did request the road profile report from the county. I think we have seen some traffic. They've at least given us the raw data. An easy way to track how roads are being maintained and if it's getting better or worse. The paved roads are the larger portion of the cost. There's something called a pavement condition index, which essentially is a report card. Out of 100, is it 100 perfect, 0, there is no road there anymore, there was a bomb? What does that look like? There are ways to assess that and seeing whether we're going up, down, or if we're slowing our trend downwards. I would expect in 2021, when we were looking at data, the expectation was that we would need $8 million a year just to maintain the roads as is in Pueblo West. An additional $5 million a year to be able to improve the roads in Pueblo West, so a total of $13 million until they got to its stable point. Right now, the county's budget with just HUTF and sales tax is about $5.3 million. So I'm guessing we're going down. The question is, are we slowing that rate from what it was projected before? And this will help basically give them a report card to show to the public pretty easily what's happening.
Well, they also said they spent $1 million on a reclaimer, which I don't know if they're gonna use that out here, or if we paid for it, or who paid for it, but they're supposed to be able to chip the roads and do more, but. And they're also returning some roads, I think, I heard they were returning some roads to gravel that were so far deteriorated that they weren't worth keeping up as.
That was
Hey.
categorically denied at the
Yes.
last
Okay.
meeting.
That's
I
good.
had the oversight committee, I think is when they talked
Yeah,
about that.
okay.
That question did come up and they
All
did
right.
say, no, that's not their intent.
That's
There
not
may be
true.
some that they're ripping out that they're intending
To
to
put them back.
put them back.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, the short of why that happens or why there's conversations sometimes around that is all roads in Pueblo West and in Pueblo County should be paved unless they meet a certain exception, and that's their average daily traffic volume. And it's based on essentially cost estimates. There is less cost in maintaining a gravel road unless it's being traveled on so much that it should have been a paved road, and that's what makes the difference for it. I do know they've recently changed it from 200 average daily traffic volume to 100, which means that there should be more roads that become paved.
Or the drainage situation.
Or the drainage situation. That's the other
That
part,
would
yes.
definitely help. The other conversation that came about, now that I'm mentioning drainage, is making sure that the community is aware of the road easements. What is that, right away, which would be the part of the gravel or dirt right next to the road where
Water conveyance.
water conveyance, yeah, water would flow through or down the road if people are putting a bunch of obstructions in there, rocks, trees, bushes, et cetera, that would divert the water into the road. That's obviously a very bad thing for everyone. So the county talked about, and the Metro District talked about how to communicate the need to not have those items placed, and if they are placed, then they potentially need to be removed. And I think there's some education programs going on social media. I think I saw one posting already, if I'm not mistaken, on that issue. Obviously, if water is diverted into a dirt road and then it gets washed out, then everybody has issues traveling that road, et cetera. So,
Yeah, because we talked about using the billboards
yeah.
and water bill.
Yep. Oh, yeah, the water bill, yeah. Right.
Any other questions or thoughts on number 10? Okay, I'll kick it back to Brian.
All right, we'll move to 11. Speaking of roads, this is the transition of exit 108, which is the Purcell I-25 change. Mainly a CDOT project, our involvement in that. The plan is to have a rest stop just west, about a half mile west of that interchange. So we'll probably work closely with them to see about the availability of building water, providing water. So that would be probably our main focus on that as we get further into that. We have started, we've looked at some wells that are out there and what we can possibly do. But the project, we've had an initial meeting. Again, it's mainly CDOT. Like a lot of government entities, they have money. I think they had 45 million for the project, but they need more. And then they have 10 million specifically for the rest stops on the site. So,
Isn't there already a rest stop up the street?
so those rest stops that are north of that, there's no plan to bring those back into service.
But they want to build a new rest stop?
They're gonna build a new rest stop on Purcell. So you know where the dirt is now, where people kind of park and meet? So it'll be almost where the road, so about a half mile from the current interchange of I-25, a half mile west on Purcell. So the way it'll look is on Purcell, it'll be a roundabout before the interchange on the west side. They're trying to stick everything to the west side, and then they'll improve that interchange, so it's obviously not one way or floods every time it rains.
I can't speak intelligently for the details of what happened, but my understanding is that that previous rest stop north around exit 110 ran into issues with septic.
Yeah.
And it's probably cost prohibitive for them to reinstate that one.
Okay.
That's an assumption.
They tried to do some sort of organic waste treatment and it failed, and now you can't use it.
Okay.
Last I heard. I didn't know there was a rest stop going in, though. I thought it was just all parking.
Yes, so there is a plan for a rest stop. We'll still have the logistics of the water utilities, and then how complex a rest stop it is, I don't think they've decided. I think there's a plan
Based
for a
on
rest
funding.
stop gas station is my understanding, but I don't know how complex it'll be at this point.
I know at one point we were trying to talk about getting that land and being able to put things in ourselves commercially, but
I can share, just on that note, that the county, obviously where the plan and traction for it, are open to anything that we would want or need as far as conversations for developing that, whether it's commercial or any type of zoning up there.
okay, fair enough.
Do we own property there? I thought it was Walker Ranch.
It's Walker Ranch.
It's Walker, yeah.
Okay. Priority number 12 is modernizing the district service plan. As you guys are aware, the current service plan is about 52 years old, and it is a little confusing and often leaves room for interpretation. And so we are wanting to update the service plan. Right now, it is currently, the board had requested general counsel's assistance in just understanding the potential legal ramifications of updating that service plan. So it's just more of in the analysis stage at this point. As we kind of work through those areas, then we can kind of start drafting what that service plan would look like and preparing to kind of have partnership with Pueblo County to actually get it approved. So at this point, there's limited progress.
All right, moving on to the Aquatic Center is priority 13. Obviously making some progress with the funding with Tabor, looking about 6 million, another 3 million available, and then looking about 900,000 remaining. Obviously phase 1 and phase 2. We're currently in the process of getting the soil analysis for the 2 possible site locations. So we hope to have that data shortly. So we can move forward with that, but starting to make some real traction. And I know it's been a long time coming, but starting to see some of the work in progress come to fruition. I know we've talked about it a lot lately. I don't know if there's any specific questions on that. Carol was waiting for questions, so.
Do we know, excuse me, do we know when we're gonna get the soil sample results?
We got a proposal from Ascenza, and our operational support department is reviewing that, and then we're moving hopefully forward with that project management.
What does that mean?
What does that mean?
In terms of timeline, what are we talking about?
Well, right now, we're reviewing the proposal to make sure it
The RFP,
includes some
yeah.
useful information that we need, so it's not just throwaway, single purpose.
Yeah.
We want it to be useful. If we decide to go on this site, that there is some useful information. I think we'll probably get an answer on that beginning of next week on whether or not the proposal is acceptable or not.
Is there a time frame on the RFP? As far as we want the soil samples by such and such?
I don't think this,
I didn't see a timeline.
I didn't either. I don't recall a time.
Okay.
I can reach out and definitely find that out.
Just wondering. I know there's a push to get some answers and resolution on this.
So they haven't even started boring? I mean, we're just looking at a company come out and do core samples?
Yeah.
We just got the proposal to do it a couple days ago.
And so now what's the process?
We're going to review the proposal, make sure it's acceptable, and then process it and get them on the schedule.
Were they the only ones contacted?
They were the only ones contacted, and the rationale was whoever's designing the aquatic center has their geotechnical sub. They would have their geotechnical sub do the borings in these other locations, so it's turnkey no matter which location we go to. They will be able to use and access that information for the development of that site.
That's a lot of technical talk for a company that just, I mean, there's lots of companies out there. Majestic does it. It just, that is information that a lab creates that anybody can get and interpret. I don't follow your rationale for keeping it within one company because they're working with the design firm. That information is, it's an analysis. It has nothing to do with who's going to do what. They can interpret that and determine what type of soil it is and what type of foundation it is.
I do think if you go with this one, or the way you go with this one, means that we don't have to go through an entire process to select somebody. It does give us the ability to be able to actually.
I thought you didn't have to anyway because they were below the criteria for the bid process.
I think you still evaluate the quotes. But
Yeah, you're supposed to get 3 quotes.
Yeah,
You get 3 quotes.
It wouldn't be as intense of a process as an RFP, but getting the quotes would still be something you'd be selecting and then starting to work with them. So I think it just sounds like that, as we thought that would be the fastest solution, their response to us took more time than we anticipated. And so that's where we're at.
All right. All right, and then moving on, number 14 is our covenant enforcement. Obviously, we went from 1 to 3 for enforcement. Been some growing pains and some learning as we go through and getting the feedback from different people from all the way to delivery notices and the fine imposition. But as we work through that, I'm sure it'll just get better. It'll get more concrete for both our staff and the citizens. And so like I said, there's been some growing pains, but we're making progress. And then eventually that end state of looking at, local enforcement on that. So And then that wraps it up for the 14 priorities.
That's part of our strategic discussion on Monday, right?
Which part?
The COA
COA,
yeah,
right.
and finding, all that, okay.
It's discussion.
That concludes going over the strategic plan. The only thing I think I hadn't mentioned before is that as you could see it either there or as you see it publicly, the strategic plan is almost a living document. It allows us to be able to add or adjust, or if we find ourselves not having thought in 2024, for instance, this task that comes up in 2027 is something we anticipated, allows us to put it in there and still show us accomplishing towards goals. So I appreciated everybody who was able to provide information and updates towards it. I think we're finding ourselves in situations where those issues that might be, or those priorities that are internal, are seeing a lot of progress and quickly, where we have control over them, where it's involved with particularly joint boards and having conversations about that. That's where we get stymied the most. And there are some places that even internally, I think we have some follow-up to do for different types of analysis, but that's been the progress to date, which shows a little bit of traction ahead of what I think, just looking at the timetable, we would normally be at. But I do know that there are some projects that might take all the way up to 2028 just to be able to make sure we're making the right traction.
You guys have done a great job on the strategic plan, given the last one that was out there. So much more data that's available, so much easier to track progress. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Any other comments, questions before we close out and then go to what we're actually here to do, which is talk about the agenda?
Lunch?
No, fair enough. All right, thanks Katrina, thanks Brian.
Thank you.
Do we need a break or dive in?
I think it's a restroom.
Take 2 minutes?
Yeah. anybody going to the SBA conference?
I believe
You
so.
what? Yeah, we're going,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Okay. I lost board members.
Huh?
I'll get started, yeah.
Are we back?
We should, are we?
He wants to push it if you're ready.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Do it.
We'll get started. All right, so we've got the agenda that will now move through. I don't know if I wanted to open up probably with some of the bigger topics, just to make sure, but today's work session with the agenda is to be able to answer any questions or discussion or just do small presentations on what the topics are. Any action items often have previous conversations. We do have several just special presentations or operational board update briefs. So we have utilities and operational support. But going into the action items, first one we have is HBNA Fire Station 1 modification agreement, which I'll actually ask you to come up and talk. Because I think we have the documentation and can answer any questions about where we're at and how we're moving. I think I heard some of the conversation. So do you mind giving a quick opening spiel?
Yeah. So basically, on the contract modification, which is what we're talking about on Monday, the board had asked Tino, when he was here, to come up with the new fees to develop just a set of floor plans. All the work had been done already through the schematic design phase of the remodel, so that's pretty much done. And then he's now presented the fees associated with the floor plans related to the addition, which is the other option that the board wants to consider. And that's pretty much it. That's where we're at. So you're just being asked to consider that change in the fees for them to continue their work.
This is the $142,719?
No, that's been
What is that?
refined.
Where-
We're asking for a new fee of $72,250. That'll just get us plans.
Okay, and that's the new fee. The old fee that request was the 142, now we're looking at 72? Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
Just wanna get that
The
straight.
142 was to finish the project, out. That was already approved in the 25 budget. But now we're modifying that. And so we're not asking them to go any further with that project as it was originally budgeted. That 142 figure, he presented after the budget was done, and it was late in January when we got that new figure for them to complete the work for the remodel. But after we've now put a stop order on that project, and then looking at the new scope of work, that we owe $67,300 currently with invoices that are right now. And then you add in the $49.50 based upon the new scope of work that the board directed Tino to do last month. That brings us to the $72,250.
So we're not approving the plan. Those are the old plans, correct?
You're not approving anything other than the money.
The money, okay.
Yes.
But.
And
that
was
catches
the old
us
set of
up.
Plans, correct?
I'm sorry?
That's the old set of plans that's in this.
I think it's the April date on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's in the packet?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
So
super confusing.
This
Yeah.
will develop the new set of plans, the finalized set of plans, including the
Okay.
two options.
With the
Yeah.
criteria that was laid out
Yes.
at the meeting.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay,
That
awesome.
makes me feel better, because when I saw
Yeah.
those, it's like, oh, he ignored us completely.
Yeah, no.
I promise we didn't go back in time.
No, that's just to get us to the point that you had asked for.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry. Sherry Reed with Project Development. I just want to clarify what you're looking for. Are you looking for a concept plan for the addition on the back of the fire station to get construction costs from?
Well, I think we had talked about a separate building that was attached to the fire station through a breezeway or a hall.
Okay, and are you looking for just a concept plan? If you want construction plans for that, you're looking at a $300,000 design.
See, I think these are the kinds of conversations we need to have. In getting away from these designers that drive our projects, we need an architect or a design firm that will just draw us the plans. We can take those plans and put those plans out to bid to a GC.
That's what we do.
That's what's happening here, is a design firm.
Tino's firm is an architecture firm. They're designing the plans, and then once we have the construction plans, then we go out to bid and get GC's bid costs for construction, and we select the contractor. That's kind of the...
But then they manage the plant, then Tino manages the whole construction.
No, now that project development is involved, they are still involved because they have specialty information in areas where we're not specialists.
Mhm.
They'll be involved, but we are ultimately managing the project. Our project managers will manage the project.
So if we have them design a building, say we look at a pre-manufactured steel structure. I don't know what the size is that he's doing, say a 60 by 80 or a 60 by 40, I don't know what the size is. We go out and we solicit bids from a steel building contractor for that building shell. Then we solicit for general contractors to build the building and finish it to our specifications. Is that something different than, we can't do that?
It doesn't benefit us to break it up. It's better if you hire that GC that then orders the building and he helps coordinate all his subcontractors to get the complete package.
Well, I don't necessarily agree with that it doesn't benefit us, because because there are entities that do that. They buy the buildings and then hire a general contractor to put them up. One, you don't pay any additional fees. You know, they're gonna make money on that building if they order it.
They are.
Okay, if we order it, we ordered it what it costs us.
But when you start to break it out like that, you're losing quality control.
You're buying a building kit, the same building kit that general contractor would buy. So there's no quality issues yet. Now the general contractor is responsible for erecting that structure and finishing it according to the plans.
We've told the building supplier the specifications, and then you've got your person who's gonna build it though, and they have more knowledge in putting that building together than as project managers we do. They need to be involved in that decision on how it's going to be done. So when they do it, they're not saying, okay, well, we didn't get this, so we can't warranty that. We're just doing it per what was ordered.
Well, that's not been my experience, Sherry. I've built a number of steel buildings, and I've never had, I've ordered the building, and then I hired a GC to put it up. I don't know the quality control issues you're talking about between ordering a package that's delivered on site and then the general contractor puts it up.
There's different, so we're more in a commercial setting. Was this a commercial building?
Yeah,
that
they've
you
all been
did?
commercial buildings.
Interesting. It's just not commonly done for
Petco did it.
government entities. I mean, it just,
Petco did it, a 77,000 square foot building out at the airport. They bought the building and hired a contractor to put it up.
How much did it save them, Bill?
They put up a 77,000 square foot building for $3 million, and most of it a lot of the cost was in the foundation work because they over excavated and then they slurried it and put it back into the hole rather than using structural fill. So there was a lot of cost involved. It cost them $3 million to put that structure up.
What would it cost them if they had had a GC do it instead of them?
They did have a GC do it. All they did was buy the building.
Yeah. I guess I'm not following with the,
They bought the building and the GC came in and constructed it.
The total cost was 3 million.
Yeah, the total, well, the total cost was 3 million, the building package was 370,000 is what they paid for the building package.
you know, misunderstanding or understanding correctly, you're saying we order the building, GC does all the work once it's ordered.
Right, once it's,
What was that costing, is my question.
oh, you'd have to see what the general, I guess, I don't know what they charge. Do they have
I
a
thought that was your
10% upgrade or 10%? 20%? I don't know what they upcharge the building for ordering it. Because they're ordering it according to the specifications of the owner.
And you are correct. They're getting their overhead and profit margin on that amount.
For just ordering it?
Yes.
Do we know what that difference is?
Typically, it's 10 and 15, so you're looking at 25% probably.
But once you have a design centered around that building, the plans are the plans. That building kit doesn't care. The contractor gets to bid the project based on the plans that we have.
That 10-15% is over the cost of the project, not just specifically that overhead for ordering it. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So that's my question, is how much,
So if the building project is 3 million and the kit is 300,000, it's 25% on that 300,000 that you would be
Another 60,000, 70,000.
or whatever it is.
For no real inherent purpose.
okay. That makes sense.
That's all. I don't think you're gonna
That
degrade.
doesn't change anything about the actual
No, so-
design firm, the architect. that
No,
process.
so if we could,
Just look for small things to help reduce costs.
yeah.
So going back to the original question that you had, so this 42,000 that we're looking to, or 72,000 that we're looking to
72.
approve, that doesn't give us architectural plans?
It gives you a concept plan, which just basically is, this is the floor plan of what the addition would be.
So what is your plan to do with, assuming that concept is approved? Then what? Then what do we do? What's the next step?
Then you can.
Then you pay another 300,000 for the architectural plans?
That's the problem, is if you want a full set of plans to bid out, you're looking at
I think.
the 10% of the construction cost being spent to get the construction drawings in order to bid the project
So
out.
let me ask you this, what if we took that conceptual plan and then we bid out for someone to draw, to be an architect and draw it out? We don't go back to this design company. They want to develop this concept, we approve it, fine, let's send it out now for bid for architectural plans.
Well,
Is that
then-
possible?
I don't,
So basically,
I think with the intent to be, try to find the lowest bidder for that concept plan.
Because if they're going to come back and say, well, we want 10% of the estimated cost, and we're estimating the cost at this, that's like somebody writing their own, that's ridiculous. So,
so this is my personal opinion, is we've hired this company several years ago to
I understand that,
draw
I
it
understand the
up. So we
history.
already have the concept plan minus an attachment of it. So you're kind of would be going backwards if you took them out of the project at this point. We can say, okay, this is what we want, but we want it detached and attached via breezeway, and we want a proposal to do construction drawings.
And did you guys already show us that? Wasn't that option 3 or 4,
no,
whatever,
not the
last time?
detachment, that this is a whole different idea.
But the
You saw.
interior stays the
I'm
same.
talking about your option 2, but it was
Yeah.
attached to the building. as expansion. There was a request to create a detached with a breezeway.
I thought there was one
Yeah,
that
I
had
thought there
a,
was.
it had
I
a
think he
soffit in there.
I think he did a quick.
Oh, was that your comment?
Yeah, I showed an example of it being detached. Nothing changed from what was internal. It was just detached from the building. No structural issues or needing to get into structural of the current building. It's just a standalone building that's
Gotcha.
meant to house the fire.
That's what we've been talking
Yeah.
about, yeah, from the get-go.
So I
don't know
guess
why-
it would change some, because that fitness room would be staying in the existing building.
Yeah, the
So the
original
concept.
option 3 included the fitness room, the bunker gear store, everything over on that side. To reduce the footprint, which is what we had talked about, there was a earlier drawing that kept the fitness room in the old part of the building, as well as the bunker gear storage, keeping that separated so that we reduce the square footage of what we were trying to build.
See, I think we really overcomplicate things. If we want a 6,000 square foot building, it's the same thing that the committee's doing with the admin building. The firemen come up with this size that you want, conceptually. All the bedrooms that you want a kitchen in there. Okay, now we go out to bid for an architect to draw it. Just draw it. All we want is plans. We don't want you to manage the project. We don't want anything, just plans. Then we create an RFP to build it. And then we send it out.
I don't think there's anything different having these high.
Yeah, there is. That design firm is driving,
Yeah, the
the design firm is driving the costs of this building. The people that I've talked to that do projects for municipal governments and large corporations all agree that when you get these types of design firms involved, you increase the cost of the project anywhere from 2 to 2.5 times.
I don't think there's anything we're doing differently other than right now there's a talk about helping develop the concept before we go out to architectural design. I think that's the only difference of what we're talking about. For everything else that you said there is exactly the way that we do it. We go and find a firm that helps design the final plan for it, and we take that plan and put it usually for an IFB for a general contractor to bid on multiple ones to be able to find the lowest cost, or whatever the best value is, depending on your IFB proposal. I think the only question here is one that is, do we want to create this middle step where we get a concept before we say, yes, we want you to spend, how much was the estimate for design?
I mean, it's typically 10% of the
10%
construction cost, and that's just a rough guess.
Mhm.
It could come in lower.
Right,
But we're
relatively
saying like
200,000.
200,000.
Yeah. Do we want to take that step and develop the second set of architectural plans and put them both out, which I think is what I understood the board wanted? Or after getting that concept and thinking about it, do we want to be able to reevaluate it? That's the only part of this step that I think is of question. To what Vice President Axworthy had said is, do you want to take the concept instead, or just where we are at now without a concept, and instead put that separately out for bid for a different, or whatever firms would bid for it instead of using this firm?
Well, we have a concept, don't we? I mean, don't we kind of have an idea of what we want?
We do, kind of.
Yeah, we do.
Can-
We have to take that option 3 and tweak it, like I said, and that's what you asked Tino to do, is to change that floor plan to reflect the size that we talked about at that previous meeting, which is his next step.
Which is about, it's a little less than $5,000 for him to do that.
What does that entail? What are we gonna get?
A set of plans.
You're gonna get a
Just
concept.
a concept floor plan. That's all you're gonna get.
And that's,
Question, whether you want
that's
that or not.
offset from the current building, or is that
Correct.
still attached?
He will offset it from the current building.
Correct. And he'll take the fitness room out of that and make it smaller.
What's our break point for bidding process? $3,500?
Formal bid is 30,000.
So if you want to spend $3,500, if you want to spend $5,000, it doesn't have to be bid on. You don't-
3 quotes.
Three quotes.
But all you're going to get is a concept, not the actual architectural
No, I
design.
realize that. I have a concept plan that I'm going to present Monday that didn't cost anywhere near $5,000. It's a floor plan. get something like that done for less money.
That's fine. I don't even know if we need that necessarily to be able to put out for design. I think we're talking about a probably much more technical way to be able to develop a concept plan that can help facilitate decision-making on how we want to move forward. We don't necessarily need that to go out just to be able to say we want architectural design plan.
We can, I mean, I'm more than capable to draw a building that has a floor plan to scale that can give you your concept plan. That you can then go out and say, we want an architect to bid on building it or designing complete plans.
Then I think the simple question here is, do we want this architect, HB&A, or whatever they've changed the name to,
Yeah.
to be designing an actual architectural set of plans for that detached expansion? Or do we want to have something that we put out for bid for a separate entity to do that? Knowing that's not going to be under 30,000.
My personal opinion, and I know we're not voting or anything like that, but my personal opinion is that we go ahead and we get this concept plan, we pay the bill, we close it out, and we move forward and we send it out to bid. Say, this is what we want. Somebody draws the plans, this is what we expect it to cost, or whatever, and then we go about it. We stop with the design firm.
Yeah.
That would be my suggestion.
So that's $5,000.
It's,
Well, I mean, based upon what Vice President Axworthy is saying, we wouldn't consider this at all. We're going to pay the bill that we owe up to this point, and then we're going to start the process all over again.
No.
He wants
We
the
want the
concept
concept.
plan.
The $5,000
You want
concept
the
plus what we
concept.
owe, and then we close it out.
So it's what
done.
you're proposing is the pay the bill, pay the 5,000 for the new concept plan, and
And we bid it out and
We
we see
make
how,
it right with
how much it's gonna really
HB&A.
cost us without a designer to facilitate the whole project.
And I think we should consider metal buildings, pre-made, I mean, ones that you can order and have delivered and then finished the way you want inside. Those, I mean, you're gonna save a ton of money.
I mean, from what I've hearing today, we're talking about what we've been told. This concept plan will cost us, but ultimately the new plans, the new drawing will cost us 200 grand or whatever, which means the ultimate project is gonna be 2 million. We're right back to where the 2.2, 2.4 that we started with, that we were questioning, why does it cost this much? So it doesn't make
I
any
don't-
sense to move forward with.
Yeah, and moving forward, going back to this original cost modification of knowing how to get to the point of construction was only 142,000. So now we're gonna start back over and spend
Another
on
200 to
Sherry,
300.
another 200-some thousand on the project.
Assuming
I don't think
you're
that's
assuming that's what it's gonna
necessarily
cost.
correct with, if you design the building, I mean, if you, I don't think that you'll spend $200,000 on a simple, this is a simple building.
Yeah, it's just
This is a
rooms and
commercial building.
Rooms and a
but
kitchen.
we're looking at all of the interior features as well. You've got electrical, you've got mechanical, you've got plumbing. I mean, it's more than just a building shell that this designer has to design.
I realize that.
And it's gonna have to be designed, I mean, probably some of the biggest costs, just off the top of my head, knowing what we went through with Station 2, is a fire suppression system. Like, you're still gonna have to have a fire suppression system designed for that building. Metal or not, it's living quarters, and it'll have to have a fire suppression system. So, I mean, those costs start adding up. So, it's not just the metal building that we're talking about.
I know what goes into building. I've put in fire suppression systems too, and generally the contractors, when they put that out to bid, the people that are bidding on that process really fine tune what needs to happen in that. And a lot of times the designer's plans are not necessarily the correct ones. So you leave it to the experts. When it goes out to bid, the electricians will determine the best course of action, the plumbers will determine the best course of action, the HVAC guys will determine. But we're talking about a commercial building such as this that has nothing special in it. The sprinkler system, you might spend $100,000 on a sprinkler system, maybe.
A
But,
lot more.
This isn't that difficult. We tend to make it way more complicated than it truly is.
I
You guys
just want
wanna
to try
try
to,
to- yeah.
like, circle the wagons and, so I thought a month ago, what we decided to do was get construction plans for 2 different options, and then we were going to put those out to bid. Isn't that what we decided to do a month ago?
Well, I kind of thought that it was going to be a plan that evolved around the separate building, the detached building. I thought that's what he had.
There was
I
3
thought that's what
there was
the
3
direction we were
options.
going.
There were 3
The way that I
options.
remember, there was 3 options. We as a board selected 2 of those 3 options and said, let's, almost as a trial or a test to see, okay, let's put these 2 options out there to bid, see what they come back at, and then decide with those 2 sets of plans which one was going to make sense to move forward with. That's how I remember it. But what I'm getting from this and what they're asking us to, I guess, approve here is a concept which isn't going to get us to be able to put that out to bid, because it's just a concept. I can do a concept on this piece of paper. So I also don't understand.
So if that's
Seems-
what you want, we can do that.
That's what I thought we decided last month.
Yes.
So I'm confused as to
It
why
is.
it's.
That is.
So why are we deciding on something different then?
I don't think it's necessarily
I don't
different. I
think
think the concept plan was probably something added that would bridge the gap, because they're gonna have to go through the work of actually designing the plans for option 2. I forget which the numbers were, but yes, to
Yeah.
your recollection, to my recollection, the decision the last meeting we talked about this, was that we were going to finalize 2 construction documents, one for what was already pretty much 80% complete, and then be able to be ready to put that out, and then develop a new set
Right.
of plans for option 2, which
Right.
was the detached expansion for it. This is a decision to at least get the modification to be able to approve the bills and the expenses thus far for that first one, because it did go over. And then the second part is, do we want that concept plan in a prefacing before we would go forward, because it is a additional $200,000 estimated expense for getting that design for option 2.
I still don't understand why we're doing why we're doing why would
Don't
we?
have to do the concept plan. We can completely remove that out and then start moving forward with number 2's design, actual set of plans.
It might behoove us to move forward with this process, though, get the concept plan, show it to y'all, and then we can make any modifications to the concept. And then if you want to put it out to other architect firms to do the plans, we can get a quote for, we can get those proposals to select which firm actually does the design if you want.
Yeah. So I think the question right now is, do plans really cost $200,000? I don't know. I'm being told that it doesn't. So if it doesn't, then why are we spending so much money? And if $200,000 is the projected estimate for these plans, for this design, that means the build is potentially $2 million, which again puts us back to square one. We just wasted even more money, which is what we don't want to do.
Well, I think the point of the expansion, or at least some part of the conversation, more real estate, more square footage, a different way to solve that same problem, but it does come with an additional, whatever that estimate is. I think this total one is in the 100-some thousand for this set of plans before modifications came additional. So that's somewhat in the ballpark of what you'd expect for a second set of plans. That is what they're costing.
So we're thinking $100,000 for the new plans for this separate building, the one we asked for, which means the ultimate cost would probably be around $1 million. Is that what we're thinking?
Could be the estimate. I think regardless, you're gonna, as pointed out, the HVAC, the electrical, the things that are going into the building are the majority of the cost, period. That's
I
not.
think $1 million is what we're what we're looking at anyway. 2.4 was a little outrageous, but.
And just to be clear, the actual cost of the building that is in that 2.4 is 1.8 million. It's the design contingency, overhead and profit, and bonding that bring it up to the 2.28. So those additional, it's 4 and 8, a couple 8% in there that are going to go on top of whatever the actual structure of the building is, just to make sure you have the overhead. So there's the question. Do we want the second set of plans or not? Originally, that was the plan, that was the intent. I think that's what we're still intending to potentially move forward with. And that's what we didn't finalize, but we do need to approve the contract modification because we're over on the original set of plans. So essentially, the two things we get adjust for tonight, or sorry, Monday, is do we want a concept plan or not? That's a $5,000 difference versus what we were trying to at least prove on that part.
So to Ryan's point, if we get the concept plan, if we pay the bill, pay him off, no matter what we do, we're looking at more money for design, right? So if we pay off the bill, do the concept plan, then put it out to bid to architects. There's the worst case scenario is it's gonna cost you more money, you know, the same amount.
Well, it might end up costing you more because they'll have to go back and start from square one. Whereas
So will he.
HB&A has already started the process and will work forward from there.
Yeah, there's not much savings though, on HBA's part, just to provide the concept plan and then jump right into design. He's got the same thing, he's starting all over.
And what do you mean square one?
I mean, he's already started costing out, and that's how he came up with that. How we came up with that 2.4 million.
But we're not asking.
another thing we don't want.
We're not asking another architect to go through all that cost estimates and stuff.
Well, don't you
They're
think
just
he
drawing the plans.
So we don't want any opinion of probable cost.
No,
We're just gonna have them draw the plans for the concept that you want, and then we'll put it out to bid.
let the GCs come up with the cost.
Okay.
Let's see it.
Yeah, let's try it.
It might save a whole bunch of money.
I
I
know
hear
it's
what you're
different. I
wanting,
know it's
and
scary. I know from a budgetary standpoint, it's nicer to have that estimate. So from a design perspective, so you can budget for the next fiscal year or do appropriations as you need to. But we're really questioning whether it's costing us twice as much to do it that way. And if so, it's not worth it for the public. And it might be eliminating a lot of local contractors that could be doing the work.
I think it's worth exploring.
Yeah, let's give it a try.
Okay.
That's my opinion. I mean, what do you guys think?
So so what you guys are proposing is basically instead of this current architect doing what we were gonna have them do based on the last month, we just want to wrap things up with him and then take these concepts and then put that out to bid for architects to tell us how much to put.
Just to design the building.
To design the
Just to
buildings.
draw the
One
plans.
set of design, one set of designs, if I understand, is already gonna be complete, right? That's the one we're looking at, is that what I'm understanding?
The remodel.
Just one, okay.
The remodel.
Yes.
Anyway, I'll save my phones. So the remodel, but the other one's just gonna be a set of plans for the 5,000, or whatever it's gonna be for that situation. So we'll have another set of plans. We'll already have a design, but I do recall saying that they were gonna put that one out to bid to see what it was gonna cost us in general for that initial set of plans. And then we were looking at possibly just shifting over to that separated breezeway building, standalone building, not attached to any structure. So that's what, I do recall that we were gonna have something where we were gonna put that one out to bid to see what happens. To give us a real good, does that make sense?
I didn't think we ever decided to put that one out to bid because they had come up with a projected cost that we thought was way out of line.
Yeah.
But I didn't believe it, that it was gonna cost $2.5
$2.5
million
million
to do a remodel.
But I don't even like the remodel idea.
But you've already got it
That's
out
just
there.
me.
Well, and to Christian's point, it's actually 1.8, right? Because we're paying so much for the design.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
But I still don't like the remodel idea, because, again, it's been remodeled time and time and time again. How many times it's been remodeled.
Oh, recently?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it's been, you showed us,
Gotcha.
yeah.
In the past.
Like 5 or 6 times. But anyway, I digress. I say, I'm with you guys. I know we're not making these decisions, but let's get the plans so we have something in accordance and we can look at that offset building. I think that's a better option personally.
Yeah, I think it should be cheaper, especially if you go about it a certain way.
Well, the designer even said that at the meeting.
Yeah, he did.
All right, moving on to number 2, hopefully. Okay, this maintenance agreement for the parking and common area, any major changes? I know we covered it once.
Yeah, I would like to take this off the agenda.
You don't want to follow Brian?
No, I figured, things aren't rolling the right direction, so we'll try another meeting. No, but we had one change that I'm having Carl look at in the agreement on non-appropriation. Carl hasn't got that revision back to me at this point, and I think it would be unfair to me to get that back over to the church short notice to approve prior to getting this thing posted. So I think we'll just push it off into the next meeting if we could.
Fair enough.
Sounds good to me.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
Chicken.
The Coyote Trail asphalt repair?
Good afternoon. Jim Blazing, Director of Utilities. This is the final repair or final action with the LS1 spill and malfunction that occurred in May of 19, or May 19th, 2025. And so what we're doing is we're repairing the affected areas of the trail and also grading and reseeding the areas where the wastewater settled on about an acre of property. So the low bid came in for $65,013 from what's their name, Sherry? Yeah, thank you. And this is what we came in. It's the lowest responsible bid that we think. We did some background work on this company, and we didn't get anything that was unfavorable with their work.
What did we budget for it?
We had, I think it was 189,
185.
and that
So-
was based on previous trail projects like the Joe Martinez project.
So we expected to pay 180 and somebody bid 65. So we made it public that we're expecting to pay 180,000 and somebody bid 65,000.
So we looked at their bid, and it appears that their seeding costs were where there was a significant discrepancy. Procurement reached out to them, said, "Are you sure about your bid? Can you do this work for this amount of money?" And they said yes. So,
They work for the city of Walsenburg, or they're kind of on a maintenance contract, and we got positive reviews from them too.
so we're gonna take it and make them do it for
Yeah.
65.
I just,
To the point of the public information. How to
yeah,
do it.
it's another scenario where we said publicly, we think it's gonna cost 180,000 and the bid came in at a third of that.
Right.
That's it.
Did a quick Google search. You may want to look into that company.
Our procurement department reached out to them and reached out to some of their references.
I don't want to say anything and,
Yeah, we'll follow up.
yeah.
And if there is something from that or otherwise that we have to, we can note that board and take it off. But, okay.
What was the other bids?
The next bid came in, I think it was like around 140, and then we had one slightly higher than that. We had another that was 198, and then we had one bid that came in at 499. So we had one significantly low, one significantly high, and three in
Close together.
relative ballpark.
Any other questions?
Nothing, just other than the follow-up, but I think we need to look into that.
Okay. Moving into discussion items, I think we're taking rules and regs off for now. Follow-up, I think there's some more verbiage within the conservation plan that for water that's going into that. There is an LOI in there that I believe Marcus will be presenting, if not both of us. I think the only thing on my end for LOIs is to let the board know we'll be developing, I think, policies to make sure we have consistent practices when it comes to receiving an LOI, how that gets to the board, whether it gets to the board, different types of ways to be able to get that approved. That might be either streamlined or recognizing if there is a deviation from a previous thing, how to get that before the board. But there is one in your packet. Are there any questions right now about that? Then, if not, I don't think Director Axworthy, have you as maybe not.
Yeah, I don't know anything.
Nope, you do not. Never mind. It's not mine. For legal services, Carl will be presenting a little bit about that. And Carl, I don't know if you want to open for any questions or give a spiel at all, but I know we'll be talking about it Monday.
Thanks, Christian. We will have materials that we'll be providing to the board in your packet, showing the areas in which we've been practicing on behalf of the district, a breakdown as to which cost centers within the district we do the most work for. Also, we did an informal survey of the amount that you pay us as a portion of your budget compared to the amount of budget for legal services that is paid by other districts and municipalities, and we think you'll find that comparison to be pretty favorable. Not to give away the bottom line, but you pay about just a little under 0.5% of your budget to legal, to Dietz and Davis. The amount that is apparently more common for other districts and local governments is on the order of about 2% of budget. So hopefully that will be good news, but we'll put that information together and have it for you in your packets to read this afternoon.
Any questions about that? I'll turn it over to President Vickers then for the two strategic discussions he had. If he wants to,
I'm just gonna talk about the COA board. Discussion is just about, where they're headed, the purview of COA, just so the board's aware of some things. Then I'll have an aquatic center discussion, hopefully introduce a different line of thinking and a different way to go about achieving an aquatic center. And I'll have that for you Monday also.
Okay, I think that covers all the items. We do have one executive session item, and that's just an opportunity after our discussion, if there's any instructions that the board would like to give to negotiators for that LOI. And other than that, I think that's our agenda. Anything that I'm missing or anything that somebody wanted to ask questions or add or to that nature?
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, thank you for our very short
Sorry
meeting.
for the long meeting.
And everybody have a good rest of the day.
You too, thank you.
Enjoy lunch.